Hello and welcome everybody. This is day 2 of our Power BI challenge. How awesome to be here. I'm so glad to have all of you join me. And if you're catching the replay, that's cool as well. That's the whole idea behind this. So if you've seen me do this, I struggle with the tech inevitably for the first few minutes. But we're looking good. If you're just dropping in, say hi. I see Shabi is on. Awesome. So on YouTube, I can't quite see who's on until you say hi. So if you're the quiet lurker, I'm never going to know you were there. All right, let's see. How's audio doing? Oh, is there any audio? Okay. That's odd. Hey, some of you let me know. My monitoring system is not working somehow. So Francois is here. Let me know if you can hear me. Okay, Francois says he can hear me. Joe is here again. Welcome back. So is Alejandro. Gustavo, I think I saw you yesterday. So that's perfect. And let me see what's going on, because I do like being able to make sure everything is working. Folks, thank you for being patient. It's that's weird. Oh boy. Let's try. So just give me a moment while I figure out the tech. I see more of you are joining. That is awesome. YouTube. Perfect. Okay, let's do some shout outs. George says good day to you, mate. Shoaib is here. Steve is on the call. Awesome. Carl is back here. That's terrific. Okay, good. I got monitoring now. How cool is that? All right, my friends. So first of all, again, thank you for participating in this challenge. And this is all about you, not me. I can't do this. All right, I'm back. You would think I've done enough of these to not fumble around with this stuff, but I do. Anyway. All right, so day 2. I got a lot of... so let's talk about what we're going to do today for the live today. So yesterday, I talked a little bit about Query Editor. I pointed out to different resources, sample data sets. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the model portion of it and relationships DAX. And when I say model, people are like, what are you talking about? And I've been warned by others not to use the word data model because nobody uses that. But, you know, there is no other term. And it's very simple. Really, in my mind, the model is pretty much this. The relationship view. That's it. That is a model. I mean, it has everything. And when I think of modeling, I'm thinking of the tables and all this stuff. And I'm thinking the relationship between the tables. And I'm thinking measures. That's it. That's the data model. That's what we're going to talk about. Let's see. Okay, goody. Perfect. So we're going to talk about that today. And again, there's a lot of teaching inside the YouTube channel in the tutorial, and there's a lot of teaching inside the Learn Power BI course, which, my friend, you have a chance to win if you're participating in this challenge. That is awesome. So I'm not going to do a whole lot of teaching, maybe a condensed version, but I'm going to talk about relationships and DAX and especially filter context for a little bit. But I wanted to start at a different place, where we are. So I got a lot of well, not a lot, but I got some emails from some of you. Was it Avi? I'm so sorry, I missed the day one, or oh man, I'm so busy. I really wanted to do this, but I'm not able to. And I see these from my students as well, where they're like, yeah, Avi, I'm so sorry, I haven't been working through the course. Is it okay if I ask this question? I mean, maybe later in the course. And guys, stop apologizing. All right, stop apologizing, because I want you to realize this. You are exactly where you need to be. And oftentimes I think a big part of our journey, whether you are, trying to run your own business, or you hold a job, even in your personal life, it's about making peace with where we are, right? I mean, you're not behind, you're not running late, you're not early. You are exactly where you need to be, as kind of and as a person as well. So there's one question I often like to ask people. So trust me, this is to do with Power BI. So there's one question I like to ask people, which is, if you could change one thing in your life, what would you change? And can you guess the typical response that I get? You're probably thinking it already. I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change a thing. Not because our lives are perfect. I know mine isn't perfect. Not because we don't have regrets. I definitely have regrets. But what I'm afraid of is, if I change that bad thing, if I fix it, would I be where I am right now? If I hadn't lost my job at Washington Mutual Bank during the financial meltdown, I wouldn't have. And that was one of the hardest things I experienced. My daughter was born right around the same time, so I was just at my wit's end. I'm like, what's going on? My family's getting bigger, and here I am. I've lost my job, right? All kinds of stuff's going through my head. So it was really, really hard to go through that. But if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have landed in Microsoft. And if I hadn't landed in Microsoft, I would never have stumbled in Power BI. And if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be here, my friends. So I'm here. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad all of you are here. So you're exactly where you need to be. And we need to start from that spot, that you're not running behind. It's okay. Take a deep breath. You're exactly where you need to be, and you have what it takes. I don't remember where I heard that first, but yeah, that feeling that, you have exactly what it takes. You have all the reservoirs of strength inside you to overcome any challenge that life is going to throw at you, including learning Power BI. So stop saying those words and stop apologizing. It's okay. It's perfect. You are where you need to be. And right now for you, that is on this call with me, which is awesome. But that's great. But what next? And that's it. That's what it's all about. Just focus on the next step. And this, I feel, is where we go wrong. So it's all about forward progress. So I'm going to use a football analogy. So I know some folks are joining from all over. They would know football as what we call here soccer. But yeah, so it's an American football, as we used to call it in India. So it's all about the next step. You're exactly where you need to be, and just focus on the next step. But I think this is where we go wrong. And by we, I mean me as well, right? I mean, I'm right there with you, my friends, in all of this. Instead of moving one ball 20 yards, which is so much easier, we have 20 balls lined up, and we're trying to move them up 1 yard. So hard. It's really hard. And we're running around back and forth like, I'm going to move this ball up, I'm going to move that ball up, and 20 balls. Stop. Let's stop that, right? Let's just focus on that one ball. And again, I struggle with it as much as you do. I'm running the challenge, and I have 100 other ideas about what I can do with my course, with my students, and all that sort of stuff. And I said, right now, my one ball is this challenge. This week, I'm going to try to push it as far as I can. So focus on that. Don't chastise yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself. You're in a good spot. And focus on moving that one ball 20 yards. Now, that one ball for you could be this challenge right now, or could be something else. I mean, one of my friends, his son is undergoing surgery. That's his one ball. That's all he's focused on. Everything else comes next. Okay, great. Hopefully that helped. yeah. So let's talk about some Power BI. Let's talk about relationships and let's talk about DAX. So for relationships, first of all, it starts with the model. And we talked about it yesterday. Let me see if I can pull up that resource. So if you go on my channel, one of the playlists here, data modeling, and we talked about it yesterday. So it starts off there, but when I build the data model, it doesn't have any relationships. So none of these lines are present. And if I don't turn off auto detect, I usually delete this stuff. Frankly, I forget turning it off, but I'm not a huge fan of auto detecting relationships. And where is that setting? Data load. Ah, there it is. Yeah, and the irritating part about this is that it's not a global setting. I wish it was a global setting and I would turn it off. So it's per file. So this is the stuff that I'm talking about. So automatically, who cares? Relationships, import relationships from data sources, maybe auto detect. That's a no-no in my mind. And for simple models, it doesn't matter. But my friend, sooner or later, you're going to build something which is slightly complicated. And a lot of times, the decision that the Power BI model makes, it may be right, but I want it to be an intentional exercise, a conscientious exercise, where you are designing this model almost by hand. So there's nothing automatic. Not like, oh yeah, cool, it detected all relationships. No, you are deciding which is my data table, right? So again, that starts with modeling. That starts with this this video right here. And please organize them this way. It's better. Just trust me, right? So data tables are down at the bottom, and data tables, I make them bigger. Even if they have 3 columns, I don't care. I make them really big. So that's my data table. And usually I end up, even if it has 3 columns, I end up with 50 measures anyway. So yeah, you can make it big. And the lookup tables, I keep it small. But the lookup tables always are up top. So again, forget auto detect. I'm going to be intentional. I'm going to be, yep, this is connected to that. This is connected to that. Well, okay, maybe I'm being too hard on auto detect. Maybe you let it auto detect, but then validate each and every one. So that's that. You create the relationships, data, lookup tables, boom, done. And if you bring in multiple data tables, they hook up to most likely existing lookup tables. And sometimes you need new lookup tables, and that's okay. And not every table is going to connect to every lookup tables. It depends on what the data said. And more of that is in the data modeling, so I'm not going to go in this video right here, which you can find on my YouTube channel. But data tables essentially represent business processes. The lookup tables are the who, what, where, when, how. Now, for the relationships, another thing that I would mention is that I am typically not in favor of bidirectional relationships. I strongly feel that your default should be a single directional relationship. So for those who are like, what am I talking about? If you go double click on a relationship, it would open up this prompt, and in here there's this cross filter direction, and both is what I'm talking about, kind of bidirectional relationship or bidirectional filtering. Your default should be single, and folks who have been using Power BI Desktop for a while would remember there was a time when Power BI Desktop itself defaulted to bidirectional filtering. And now I think they have in general stopped doing it, but they still may do it in some scenarios, but don't, right? So if you're setting it up, and this is called, technically it's called star schema. I rarely call it that because when people think of it and talk about a star schema, they feel compelled to organize in the shape of a star, which please don't do. Just organize it this way. It's going to keep it, make a lot more sense to you. Lookup tables at the top, data tables at the bottom, right? Gosh, where was I going? Bidirectional relationship, 2 filters, a star schema. So yeah, so Power BI Desktop used to create a bidirectional relationship by default, and that would lead to all sorts of troubles, to the point where they stop doing it for the most part. Maybe in some scenarios they say, oh, okay, it's I'm gonna have a bidirectional relationship, but they changed it, and so should you. So your default should be a single directional filtering from your lookup table down to your data table, right? So notice the arrows are pointing downwards. Well, they're probably too small for you to see, but yeah, they're pointing downwards because they're pointing in the direction of filtering. So it's a one directional filter. The filter flows from the top
to the bottom. Makes sense, right? I mean, water flows downhill. Apple fell down on Newton's head. Things fall down, flow down. So relationships also flow down. And obviously, this analogy only works if you keep your data table at the bottom. And my friend, it seems like something simple, but it's life-changing. Believe me, it was for me to organize tables this way and understand that filters flow downhill. Boom, done, right? But then there is a place for bidirectional filtering, and you notice here that I do have a table which has a bidirectional filter. And that one, again, everything about your model should be conscientious, should be intentional. So before I create bidirectional relationship, are there other scenarios? I'm not sure. But typically, it's when there's a many-to-many relationship involved, right? For example, in this case, I have sales and sales reason. But let's take something fun. Ice cream and, I don't know, ingredients, something like that. So yeah, you can have, vanilla flavor. I'm going to be so not creative in this. Help me out with ice cream flavors, my friends. Vanilla, and that's going to have ingredients, vanilla bean, milk, and so forth. So one ice cream flavor can have multiple ingredients, but one ingredient can be included in many different ice cream flavors. So that's a many-to-many relationships. And it's fairly common in the world, fairly common, right? So as opposed to here, what we have is a one-to-many. So there's one product which can appear in multiple sales transactions, but every sale line item, so this is at a line item level, would only have one product, right? So it's one to many. So hopefully I didn't mess it up. So there's one to many, and there's many to many, and many to many is typically where I have a bidirectional filter, right? But again, it's very intentional, and you don't always need a bidirectional filter. So what a bidirectional filter does is, imagine if I change this one to a bidirectional filter, then instead of just flowing down from territories to sales, the filter is also gonna flow up. So it's gonna become bidirectional. But the bidirectional relationship is not the only way to enforce that. In fact, I think at some point Power BI didn't have the concept of bidirectional filtering. So we have done bidirectional filtering for a long, long time, my friend. Nothing new. And we used to do this in DAX. And in DAX, it's simple. All you have to do is use the magic wand. Yes, calculate is a magic wand. Is that going to work? Let's see. And calculate, and let's see, whatever measure, sales or something like that. And then comma, and then you use the downhill table. Now, that's it. That's all it needs. And it forces the relationship uphill. The measure was a bad example. So, yeah, the semantics of that command are interesting. I wouldn't go there. Not on this call, but yeah. So bidirectional filtering should be intentional, and that the relationship is not the only way you can enforce it. You can enforce it in a measure as well, and that's a fun area. So you've heard me talk about how I love trade-offs, and yeah. So being able to weigh those options. So hey, which one would be better when? Okay. So let me quickly glance at the question. So global settings. Shinob is asking about that. So if you go to options and settings in Power BI desktop, there are, notice that there are two sections here. One is global, and you can set this, let's try that again. So whatever you change here is going to apply to any file you work on. So security, privacy, I usually turn this on, always ignore. I'm like, yeah, whatever. So yeah, so this is going to apply to every file. And then there are the current file settings. So I uncheck this auto detect, but if I open a new file or open a different file, it might have its own setting. Another good thing to turn off is this time intelligence. It's well intentioned, but guys, once you have the power of calendar table, and you do, because there's the calendar table download on my channel, just search for Ultimate Calendar. Actually, let me show that to you really quick. So in here, if you go search, did you know there's a search in YouTube? Actually, it took me a while to figure it out. But you search for calendar. It's actually a playlist. Let's see. Yep, yeah. So this one right there. So yeah. So some things you can turn off. Auto detect relationships. I'm not a huge fan of. I use that with caution. Another thing,
it really bugs me is this auto date time. Yeah, because I used my own calendar table. It gives me the ultimate flexibility. Okay, so Joe was asking, is there ever a time when bidirectional filtering is required? I wouldn't say required, but many to many scenarios is where typically you would see it. So in this case, I'm tracking sales reason, like why did they buy? So if you go to sales reason, there it is. Yeah, you can see it's tracking like, hey, they saw our ad and they heard it from a friend or something like that. And of course, somebody can say, yeah, I heard it from a friend and then I saw your ad, which made me come in. So it's a many to many relationship. That's when I would typically use bidirectional filtering. Okay, goody. So relationships, I'm going to stop there. Again, the bedrock of this is data modeling. And if you watch my data modeling talk, I talk about how it has been a differentiator for me. And I got lucky because I never learned it. Anyway, watch the video for more. I never read a book on it. I was taught by a mentor, Greg Weber, which I think is the best way to learn. Okay, I'm going to pause just to make sure if you have any questions, type them now. Otherwise, I'm going to move on DAX, talk about that, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, do I have any other thing on relationship? Oh yeah, so disconnected slicers is one of my favorite techniques. And gosh, I'm thinking, so certainly I have that material inside my course. I'm wondering if I've covered that on the YouTube channel. I probably would have, but yeah, so that one is fascinating. So similarly, how I said you can force the relationship uphill without using bidirectional filtering, using calculate, the same way you can have a table off to the side and not have any line connect those two and still essentially enforce a relationship using DAX. DAX is really cool, guys. And of course, the other thing here is that at one point, there can only be one active relationship between two tables. As you notice here, let's go here. So this one is going to budget, so ignore that. But this one is between sales and the calendar table by order date, as you can see down below. And this one is by ship date. So the lookup tables are the who, what, where, when, how. And sometimes there are multiple who, multiple what, where, when, how. Each of those can be multiples, right? Product, maybe the product they ordered versus the product that was shipped because it was out of stock, the date they ordered, the date it was invoiced, and so forth, the customer who placed the order, customer it was shipped to, customer who paid the invoice. So you get the idea. So there can be multiple of those. And in here, you can only have one relationship active between two tables at a given time. So you can have an inactive relationship and then flip it on and off using calculate, so using DAX essentially. Or you can do a copy of a table. Oh, shit, I always forget the fancy term for it. So usually I'm not big for fancy terms, but it makes for interesting dinner conversations. Not really. Depends on the party you're at. So if it's Power BI geeks, then yeah. So role-playing dimensions. How about that? Oh, I'm killing it today. Awesome. So you can have a calendar and a ship calendar. And then you wouldn't have this inactive. You would have both of them active. Ask me more if you have that scenario. And let's see. Okay, one question. Ooh, okay. So is there a way that we can list the columns in desired order rather than alphabetical order? Oh, gosh, you guys are asking some good questions. Time to pull out the... where's my thing go? Okay, let's put it here. And I'm gonna make okay. Shabi is asking, is there a way we can list the columns in desired order rather than alphabetical? How it was an Excel file when imported? So yeah, I'm inclined to say no, but I'm thinking if there are any hacks around that. Actually, this is a pretty related. Let me address this, and then we'll see if we can come up with some ideas for that. So does having an independent table for measures make sense? So if you noticed in my table here, most of my measures are within the sales table itself. And typically, I say, certainly if you're starting out, actually, I don't know, I'm not sure about that advice anymore. But when I started out, my thing was that I will put the measure where it's operating on. So notice the cost measure is operating on the sales table, so it's going to live in the sales table. Kind of makes sense. And similarly, right? So if I had something that was operating on the customer table, then it'll live there. Now, of course, you would have sometimes hybrid measures, which go across, calculate some sales, and then go to the customer table, find out the number of cities they're in, and so forth. So hybrid measures, you get a choice. You can put in either one, wherever you think it makes most sense. But then I started putting them in a separate folder or a separate table when Power Query had a nasty bug in Excel, which would make you drop your table and recreate it, and then I would lose all my measures. So I started putting them in a separate table. Now that does have a trade-off, certainly on the Excel side. So for Power BI users, it doesn't quite matter, but in Excel, you're used to that, where you can double-click this cell and it'll show you the underlying sales, underlying records. So I can double-click this, and it can be pretty handy when you're looking at something like, oh, that number looks off, and you just double click that, see the underlying, like, oh, that's where the data is. So it's very handy. But if you use a separate table for your measures, it stops working. That doesn't work. So that's a trade-off. But usually in the Power BI world, nobody even cares about that. So that's usually okay. So now I'm at a point where for the models that I built for my clients, I do keep a separate table. In fact, I keep separate tables. So if it's a big enough model, I don't know, 10, 20 files, one or two different data tables. Sometimes I would have something like, kind of sales measures, and that would be off to the side, budget measures, and that would be off to the side. Sometimes even in a single data set, I would have separate tables, and it's like, hey, this is sales year over year, or time intelligence, something like that, and all the time intelligence stuff would go there, and this will be like sales performance. So I do keep multiple folders, and I'm truly envious of this, my friends. If there's an idea on Power BI side, let's vote for it. So I've talked about how you can learn these skills anywhere. You can learn DAX inside of Power Pivot, and you can apply it in Power BI Desktop, and you can go apply it in SSAS Tabular, Azure Analysis Services. It's the same DAX, I think, yeah. So I love that flexibility, that you can play at any level. If you could be Excel, Power Pivot, Power BI Desktop, or playing kind of big league Azure Analysis Services or SSAS Tabular. But our elder cousins, whatever, SSAS Tabular and Azure Analysis Services, when you're in Visual Studio, you can do subfolders. And wouldn't I want to have that? Oh boy, please. So you could go in sales and create a folder here and say sales measure, sales time intelligence measures, sales versus budget comparison, whatever you wanted. So you could have a subfolder inside of this. That would be so cool. I would like that. But you can't do that here yet. That is available if you're working in Visual Studio or deploying to SSAS Tabular and so forth. So yep, I normally do use that technique, but as I said, it comes with a slight trade-off. I'm still thinking about this. Good idea. I like that one. Let's see. Joe is asking to do. I didn't even know that option. What is that option? Let's go check it out. Assume referential integrity. Apply security filter. Okay, man, you got me curious. Okay, let's Oh, okay. No wonder I'm not familiar. So it seems it applies in direct query, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Okay. So it seems that's available only in direct query. So when you open your Power BI desktop, you can connect to maybe not all. Yeah, I'm pretty sure not all, but some data sources where you can use a direct query. One of those is a SQL server. You can use direct query there. For SSAS tabular, you can use a direct query. So for SSAS tabular is a weird one because SSAS tabular, remember, is a model as well. It's a model just as Power BI desktop is, right? So PBIX would build a model, and SSAS tabular already has a model. But typically, when I'm connecting to data sources, let's try SQL Server, and if I so here you would see these two options, import or direct query. People ask me about that. And again, kind of how I talked about relationships, the default should be one directional filtering, not bidirectional. In this, the default when you're building a model should be import. Direct query is more of an exception. So when I follow that, I'll have to justify it to myself and say, why am I using direct query? And some scenarios could be that the data set is really, really large, right? So it's just humongous, and I don't want to deal with kind of bringing it in. Direct query can make it more instantaneous as well. Would it make it real time? Well, real time is a whole other kind of bag of things. So I wouldn't talk about that. But you don't have to do the refresh cycle. Whatever's in the data is going to be in the report. So if you have that requirement, and there might be some other scenarios. So, but again, it's an exception, more exception, and the default should be that you're importing it, and then carefully, with some love, my friend, crafting out this beautiful thing. Yeah, we'll talk about. Actually, that's a good one. Let's go back. Hey, how about that? Okay, so let's. What are we talking about? One of the questions, referential integrity. So that it seems it applies for direct query, which is okay. So yeah, if you are in a scenario where you need to use direct query, and notice that all it does is it makes the queries more efficient. So you wouldn't notice, it wouldn't be a functional difference. It wouldn't be like it would look different and the field list would be different. It would hopefully just run a little bit faster. So that's what I got from it, but I wouldn't venture more. But hey, thanks for pointing that out. I had no idea that existed. I always learn from my students, and hey, I learned from you guys today. Okay, good. Let's talk about DAX. I think we're ready. So first of all, how do I put it? There are times when I feel in control. In general, let's talk about life, right? I mean, when I feel in control, like I got the steering wheel. Maybe this is a good example. So when I started my own business, learnpowerbi.com, online training, that's what I'm focused on right now. It's been hard. It's been hard, my friends, and it's been super scary. But the analogy that I often use is it's as if all my previous life, I was sitting in the backseat of the car and I was being driven around, right? I mean, company reorg, boom, we're going in a different direction. New manager, boom, we're going in a different direction. So yeah, I was being driven around, and I would sometimes hop out from one car and sit in another car, but always in the back seat. But now, in my new life, I feel like I have the steering wheel in my hands. Now, I admit, sometimes I'm white-knuckled with fear. So for better or worse, I have the steering wheel, I have control, but I would rather have it that way. So in general, I like feeling in control, and when I think about the times when I was kind of floundering around, just trying to hack things out, that's not a good feeling. And I see a lot of that going on in Power BI. And when I say Power BI, it's all of that. It's Power Pivot and Power Query and Power BI Desktop and PowerBI.com. But specifically, I'm talking about, I don't know what to call it, avoidance of DAX. So here's what I see, kind of the floundering around. People would go to great lengths
to hack things in the visual display. I mean, they would have filters. They would have a filter for each one of the tables or visuals. They would have multiple tables, one filtered this way, another filtered that way, and so forth. I would see that, and I would see sometimes where they would just play with the relationships, like, oh, my thing isn't working. Oh, I'm gonna change it to a bidirectional relationship. That's gonna fix everything, and not understanding. So it's not intentional. They're just kind of trying things out. And I see some of the more bizarre stuff where I'm gonna take a simple example, but I see this, and I'm like, oh, sum isn't working. Great, I'm gonna use sum x. And again, if you use it intentionally, it's okay, but not if you're just throwing darts in a dark room. It doesn't help. And my favorite, where they take something and wrap it inside a calculate. So calculate inside somewhere as part of a function, it can have an impact. It does have this effect, which is called row context transition, which maybe we'll talk about. But if you wrap it kind of on the outside, that's the last thing you do, and there are no filter parameters, it does nothing, right? So, and that, I asked them, like, why is it there? And I often say, oh yeah, it wasn't working, so I thought I would put calculate and it would work. So my friends, I do call calculate the magic wand. It is amazingly powerful, but not like that, so it doesn't work. So I see a lot of avoidance, and maybe I got lucky. So when I started, Power Query wasn't there. That thing didn't exist. All it was Power Pivot. That meant I was still doing a lot of clean shape transform in SQL or sometimes in Excel, and that was painful. I didn't realize how painful that was until I found Power Query in the query editor, but it wasn't available. So I had to grapple with DAX to solve all my problems. And for newcomers, they go into Power BI and they see these two things. And yes, it's maybe you can say there's a lot to learn. Okay, so somehow I've broken it, but why isn't it working? Hold on, let me see if I can fix it. Power BI. Let's try that. And this feels more Excel-like, and they just go to town here, to the point where they build the reports in the query editor. So whatever calculation, group by and something, and they would have a lot of tables because each one is a report. And all they're doing is kind of avoiding DAX. And is that for a good reason? Well, I mean, I understand the reason behind it, but I will say that you're missing out big time, because DAX is perhaps the real powerhouse in Power BI. That makes the whole thing tick. And the magic of where you define a formula once, use it everywhere, is just amazing. And I go more about that in my tutorial, Zero to Dashboard. Check it out on my channel. Yep. That is in the playlist, the first one. So I won't say more about that, but I'll just say that if you have not been stepping into DAX, you really should. Okay, great. So let's so one challenging thing about, so what makes DAX challenging? I think for one, we carry a lot of our Excel mindset, or even I've seen people coming from SQL background and so forth, and they carry those mindset in here, and it doesn't help. So for Excel, you can look at a measure, look at a formula. They don't have measures, and you can kind of learn as you go. For DAX, that's not true. You got to understand some core principles before you can make any progress. And that's why I'm not a huge fan of quick measures. Some of you might be familiar. You can, you can kind of do here and define measures right here, because they don't really teach you. I mean, you're going to perhaps be left more confused by quick measures as soon as you need a slight change. If quick measures gave you what you needed, great. But as soon as you need a slight tweak, like, oh, this is not working, then you're going to be stuck. So you got to learn a few concepts, and my belief is that is not hard. In fact, anytime a student in my Learn Power BI program kind of says that, oh, this is so hard, I kind of stop them right there. And again, it's kind of a bit of a mindset thing, as we were talking about initially. I feel like if you think that something is hard, that is going to become your reality. Yeah, that's going to be so. Just make sure things are working here. Oops.
Okay, great. So it isn't hard. The same way cycling isn't hard. But once you first start pedaling, it seems insanely hard. In fact, it seems impossible. How can this thing stay upright on two wheels? So that's what DAX is like. And interestingly, the concepts, a lot of concepts are dead simple. And it took me a while to figure it out. But when I did, I'm like, what? Seriously? So filter context and row context gave me the heebie-jeebies. Really scared me. Like, oh my God, my measure isn't working. Now I got to think about the filter context. And once it dawned on me what it is, I'm like, what? That is a filter context? So let's talk about it real quick. I don't have a thing. So let's do filter context. How about, I want to do a template, and let's do this guy. So this is what filter context is, my friends. And again, you can argue to death with me that no, Avi, it's a lot more than that, but it isn't. So if you have done this, if you've gone in Excel, turn on filtering, and done something like this. So now I'm seeing all the rows, and now I said, you know what? I only want to see 2018. Boom. That's the filter context. It's a filtered set of rows. What is a row context? Row context, so let's talk about that really quick. Where do we go? So if we were to do a calculated column, and it's been a long time since I did a calculated column. Let's go to sales. So if you go here, and we say modeling, new column, and I actually already have that. So so I would say total, or let's just say sales plus tax equals, and I say sales, what is sales amount? Sales amount plus tax amount, right? I can do that, and it works. Sales plus tax, there's my number. Oh, I didn't format it. I'm like, what's going on? Why is it in millions? Okay, there we go. So yeah, glorious AdventureWorks data. So there's a lot of repetition, but that's sales plus tax. Now let's take the same thing and define a measure. Sales plus tax measure. Now you can see the squiggly lines right away, and it doesn't work. And it gives you some error. I don't care what it says. Well, why doesn't it work? Well, because when you're defining a column, it has the row context. What is a row context? So when you go sales plus tax, when it's saying this inside a column, then it's calculating row by row. So it goes here and says, ooh, I need to do this math. And sorry, that scrolled off screen, but that was sales amount plus tax amount. And there's no confusion, like which sales amount and tax amount. It's on this row. It knows which row it's on. And say, yep, I'm going to grab this guy and this guy. Boom, done. Simple, easy, because it has a row context. So what is a row context? Row context is simply the knowledge of the current row. Do I know which row am I on? Is that valid? And measure doesn't have that. So when you define a measure, it does not have a row context. With me? Now I know some of you are like, oh, Avi, it does, or something like that. But it doesn't have a row context, so it breaks down. So when you come here, it says that error that, oh, cannot be determined, because it's saying, Avi, which one? I don't know which sales amount you're talking about. I got a ton. I got a whole list. So tell me which one. So you can't do it this way. And you have to, so you cannot do a naked column reference because it doesn't have a row context. So you have to aggregate it. So I'll say sum this and sum that. And now it's happy. Now it's happy, right? So for those of you who were, let me see if somebody piped up in the chat window. So it doesn't have a row context. Measures don't have a row context implicitly. They don't. But it can be manufactured using an X function, which are iterators, which create the row context. They go row by row, kind of like how a calculated column does. So that's it, my friends. That's row context. That's filter context. Now, why the heck is it so complex? Now, believe me, I tie myself in loops all the time around these things. It's complicated because not because the concepts are complicated, but the different ways in which they can be combined, the permutations and combinations are complicated. And what helps me there is to just break it down step by step. So I'm going to talk about that. I want to talk about the I can rule, and it's called the I can rule because, my friends, if I can do this, you definitely can do it. I know that. Okay, yeah, so E.S. Harris is talking about, yeah, where things are a mystery, and, I hate that, guys. I mean, yeah, when things like, shit, why doesn't it make sense? And I don't like being in that space, and I spend a lot of time there, and I'm here to help through my YouTube channel, through my course, and believe me, you're going to be in a better place where it's not a mystery anymore. So E.S. Harris is talking about, yeah, I don't really understand when should I use calculate? It works when I use it. Yeah, different options, like should I use count AX with a filter? Okay. Hey, Mickey's on. Hey, Mickey. So Mickey is a new member in the Learn Power BI family. Glad you can join us here. Carl is saying the bane of my DAX existence is the lack of a way to document the code. I saw you do a table of formulas once. You can expand and offer how you document projects. Ooh. Okay, hey guys, that is a worthy side trip. So let's take that side trip and we'll come back and talk more about the filter context and the I can rule. So how do you document a model? So for one, I'm a lazy person, my friend. I am lazy as they come. And I think that's a terrific attribute. I think they should screen for laziness when you hire people. Like there should be some amount of laziness. Because I see people doing insane stuff in Excel. And I'm like, how could you? And right, I mean, how could you bear that, right? And actually, I should be a little nice to them because I was doing the same stuff. I mean, sure, I was getting into VBA macros and trying my best to automate it, but at some point it just gets too complicated. I mean, that's the challenge with Excel. It's very quick to start something, but over time, it just becomes more and more complicated. And that's where I want to come back and talk more about how your model, your Power BI model, is your temple, my friend. We shall keep it clean. The worst scenario, the worst outcome you can have with Power BI is you end up in the same data hell that you were in Excel, just a different flavor. Earlier you were struggling in Excel or whatever other tools, and it's not Excel's fault. It's just, it's a different tool, right? But here we wanna get to the promised land, not go back to the same data hell. Document. How do we document? So yeah, I'm a lazy person. I hated documentation because if it would take me 1 day to build a report, shoot, it would take me 2 days to document it. And the whole thing was pointless anyway because by the time I documented it, so of course I wouldn't do it in 2 days because who wants to sit down for 2 days and write documentation? It's sick. Nobody does that. So I would take 2 weeks. Okay, I admit, I would take 2 months to do it. But any time I was done, it would be out of date because the process changed, something had tweaked. So it's just insane. I hate documentation. I'm lazy. So one thing that I like in Power BI is the self-documentation, the query editor. So the scenario in that old Excel world is that you have the input, you see exactly, oh yes, you export this file from our BI tool, and that is my input, and here's my finished report. But all the steps in between are like, I don't know what happens. And you guys, you can write the best of macros, but at some point it kind of breaks down. And then I'm a stickler for OneNote, so I would have screenshots and step by step and all that stuff. And even then, I would struggle like, shoot, how did I do it this month? I think I got it, it was insane. And forget about trying to hand it off to somebody else or you inheriting somebody else's report. There's a good reason why when there's a turnover, somebody new comes in, reports get dropped. Does that happen in your organization? It happens all the time, man. It happens all the time. You guys are truthful. That happens all the time. So I left, and all the reports that I was building, they were gone. I stepped in a new role, and I inherited some reports. I'm like, shit, this is insane. I'm going to do my new ones. So part of the reason was that the steps are kind of hard, and in here it's all self-documented. And I'm a big believer in helping out the documentation. So sorry about this. I don't know why it's oh, actually I know. Let me fix this really quick. Learn Power BI. So in here, I want the documentation to live with the query itself. Okay, ignore that. But you notice here that I do some other stuff where I, I, I do these markers and I organize it in sections. And that's very easy to do. You can just go anywhere and say right click, insert a step, and just rename it with that dash 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 or something like that. And so I'm a general believer in building in Lego blocks. I build my queries the same way, measures the same way. I build small things and then combine them. And that's what I would do for my queries as well. So if I had something complicated, I would combine using simple things. But sometimes when you're in a real production model, we would end up with 50 tables. And if each one of them has some sort of clean shape transform, and you're doing, let's say, 3 Lego blocks for each, that's 150 queries. And you wouldn't load all of them. You can right click and say, disable load, uncheck this box. But when you come in, it's going to get busy. So sometimes I do end up with fairly complex set of steps, but I want to keep them organized, and that's where I use this. And then, of course, you can do other stuff where you say properties and say something here and so forth. But yeah, I like that it's kind of right there with the process. And of course, even if you don't do any of that, even then it's self-documenting, because anybody can go step by step and sorry, this thing is not working, but they can see exactly what transformation happened, and they can take a glance at the formula editor. So that's on the query editor side. Let's talk about the measures side. So measures are the gold, right? And in a model, I think he had like 600 plus measures. This was a big model, 50 tables, maybe like 5 or 6 different data sets. But how do you keep it organized, and how do you communicate it to others? So this is easier in Excel Power Pivot. There are a lot of add-ins which let you do that. But I'll show you. So I use the tool called DAX Studio. So folks, we're talking about documenting the model. And it's a really cool tool, free download, and you get here and you say connect. And you remember the thing that we have talked about, that it's the same thing, whether it's an Excel Power Pivot or Power BI Desktop or SSAS Tabular. It's kind of the same thing, same engine, same DAX. And nowhere is it easier to see in the DAX Studio, because look at this. I mean, I don't have a Power Pivot model open yet, but otherwise it would be lit up. And it talks to each one of them the same way. Like, yeah, you want to connect a Power Pivot model? Sure, I can do that. Power BI? Yes. Tabular Server? Yes, why not? Because it's the same thing under the hood. So here we're going to connect to this. And again, so you can do this for any of those. You can do this for Power Pivot. Power Pivot has add-ins as well, which can let you do it more easily. And down at the bottom, you have metadata, which shows you all the tables and all this stuff. DAX Studio is an amazing tool used for other purposes as well. Yeah, but I'm just going to focus on the documentation. And if you go into DMV, which stands for, let's see if I can remember it, Data Management Views. Data Management Views. In here, you're looking for MD Schema, and it has a gold mine of stuff. So MD Schema measures, that's what I would do. Did that work? Oh yeah, select star, it does it automatically. And I'm just going to hit kind of run here. And it spits out the measures over here. And you can, so this is the way I run it. I change the output to a file. And that way, the next time I run it, I can export it to a file. And guess what I do with that file? Oops, I don't want to do that. So there are measures, you can pull in the tables, you can pull in relationships, essentially the metadata, all the definition of that. So if you guessed that I put it through a query editor, you're right. So I take the stuff, and it's kind of weird looking. I mean, if you look here, it's like, yeah, a lot of weird stuff. I usually go for measure name and measure kind of where it's housed. Where is that? Like which table? Expression, you definitely need that. Measure is visible can be useful. And then measure group, like which table it is in. So these one are in the sales table. Then I have some measures in the budget table. So yeah, it's a gold mine, and that's it. I just suck it all in and do document it based on that. That's my approach to documentation. And let's see. So automatic data dictionary. Power Pivot. Oh, there we go. So there is a video out there which kind of talks about that. And let's see. Do I have an end result? ooh, something like this. So, um, so this is something that you can come up with, and I did it a long time ago, and I feel so kind of ashamed of looking at this. I don't like calling things dimension and attributes anymore. They're very geeky terms. So I'm building a model, and this documentation is also for my end users. So if you build a really good model, and you know what, I started building a model for myself, and it went on to be used by hundreds of users. So you never know, right? You never know what's going to happen. So I like to talk in business terms. So I would just not say dimension. I would say something else. I don't know, just tables or something like that. Tables, columns. So it just had all of these. Like, hey, here are all the tables in there. Here are all the measures. And you can specify a description within the model itself. Isn't that cool? And that's going to be automatically sucked out over here. And you can also do perspectives, and I believe that is only available in Power Pivot and SSAS Tabular. I don't think Power BI has it, which is if you have a model of 60 tables, you can kind of partition it, and you can say, oh, this table is for the sales team. This set is for the marketing team. So it's kind of becomes a window to the complete model, and that becomes a great introduction to new users because they're not overwhelmed by this gigantic model, which, I don't know, hundreds of measures and tens of tables. You can say, oh, okay, I know these tables, it works. So you can build something like that. Whew. Okay, that was a great segue. I say, I want to update that video going back, but boy. So let's see who earned the Power On badge of lightning yesterday. It was Carl. He's making a habit of it. So these questions would seem innocuous, but end up me speaking a long time for that. So they're deeper than they look. So I say this one gets the Power On badge of lightning. So great question there. And let's see if we can get back to our measures. Mickey is asking, does spaces in measure names cause issues? Is there a way to get all the definition of measures? So we the second part we already talked about. Which is, I showed you the DMV and the DAX Studio and all that stuff. Did that work? Oops. Spaces and measures don't cause any issues. I will say that I'm permanently afflicted with a fear of spaces. I started my career at Lucent, in US actually. I was working in India at huge corporations. They don't do satellites and things like that. But at Lucent, they gave me a Unix workstation, and that was... So I have spaces were always problematic. So you would see me doing underscore, and one of my close friends, he always laughs when he sees me do that. I'm always like power underscore BI underscore challenge, and he's like, come on, Avi, spaces are okay. They've been okay. So spaces are okay. You might have to enclose it in something if it has a space, but usually it happens automatically. So when you're defining a new measure, so let's say I'll say top. So yeah, spaces are absolutely okay. Measures are enclosed in square brackets anyway. So spaces are everywhere, okay, everywhere. And we already talked about is there a way to get all the definitions. So that's the DAX Studio. Woo! So we'll go DMV, MD schema measures, and look for the video. So it's on my channel automatic dictionary, something like that. So yeah, and you can search. Sorry guys, I'm losing steam a little bit. Sip of water. How are you guys doing? Okay. I was, by the way, I was supposed to start in these cool glasses. I'm not sure you can see. It says, I love Power BI, but I couldn't see anything or couldn't see much through these, so that didn't happen. Anyway. Okay. Any more questions? Just type them in. Queue them up, and I'll dive into filter context. What was I going to do? I can. Let's go there. So yeah, remember it's I can. So this video, by the way, is on the YouTube channel. Let's see. Can you search for I can? Oh, it's a whole playlist. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, here we go. This is a playlist. And it introduces the rule, and then it shows you some examples of that, of how, just kind of following that rule. And for better or worse, there's a slight tweak in the rule, and I'll talk about that. So again, DAX isn't hard. I want you to stop saying that. It's like, well, my daughter, when she was learning how to ride the bicycle, she would, throw it down and kick the tires. And yeah, I guess it's okay to be frustrated once in a while, but it's not that it's hard. And sooner or later, you're going to learn how to pedal, and then you're going to be off and pedaling. And yeah, you're not going to think twice about it. So it's not hard, but ironically, I think it's not a matter of smartness. So sometimes people look at it and DAX, and you might have thoughts, I'm sure I did. He's like, man, I'm not smart enough, right? I'm not smart enough to figure this out. And I believe that you're not, how can I say it without offending anybody? Okay, fine. You're not dumb enough. As humans, we're too smart. So we are intuitive, and we think in intuitive leaps, and that's usually what kills you in DAX. Because DAX doesn't work that way. It is very strict. It follows a set of rules. So it's not about being smart. In fact, you have to dumb yourself down and slow yourself down and follow that step by step. I mean, every single time I get stuck and I'm like, oh shit, this is not working. And sure, that thought crosses my mind that, oh God, why am I so dumb? But it's not about that. And it's about breaking it down and dumbing yourself down to the level of the machine. So maybe that day of Armageddon would come and machines would take over and all of that stuff. And yep, AI is super smart, but DAX can do amazing things, but the rules it follows are actually very step by step, and we are way smarter than that, because again, we can take intuitive leaps, but that's what gets us in trouble. So what I do is I break it all down. So first of all, I break it down in these 4 steps, and we'll talk about that. Actually, let me just jump to that. So the 4 steps, and there's a slight modification here you can see. Let's see if we can go, oops. So the first step is to detect the incoming filters. We'll talk about that. And Calculate does its magic, so Calculate can kind of intervene and change the filtering. And there's a slight modification there, which I realized too late, but Calculate and Friends. And Friends is typically X functions. And Filter, by the way, is an X function. I really wish it was named Filter X, because that's what it is. Just like sum X, min X, max X, average X. Is there something else? Standard deviation X, all of those. Filter is Filter X. That's how you should always think about filter, always. So that was one of the big confusions. So Harris was talking about how he's confused about Calculate. Oh, believe me, I mean, shoot, between Calculate and Filter, I was like, what is going on? Like, which one is which? Which do I use? They seem to do the same thing. And the day I realized that, oh, Filter is actually Filter X. Ooh, a lot of things made sense. So it's Calculate and Friends. Friends is usually the X functions. Applied relationships, filters flow across relationship. Typically, it would be downhill, but sometimes you would have bidirectional relationships. And last one, numbers. Do the numbers. Last one, do the math. Last one is the simple steps. So if I showed you the filter context example, so imagine steps 1, 2, and 3 are in this space, and they can be, incoming filter context would define the set of filtered rows. And then Calculate could come in. So in this case, we had said 2018. Calculate could come in and say, oh no, all, whatever this field is, all payment date. And that would clear the filters. So now you're in step 2 and it's like, oh, boom, it's cleared. And then what are the next step? Apply relationships. Then maybe this is related to a calendar table, which is already filtered on month. And then this would again be filtered on month. And it'll say, oh, because the calendar table is filtered, this one gets filtered there. But you see what's happening here, right? I mean, this is simple stuff. It's just changing this filter, but there are many cooks in the kitchen, my friend. That's why it gets slightly complicated. But that's what's happening with filter context. That's what's happening with steps 1, 2, and 3. It's just changing, oh, this is a filtered set of rows. No, this is a filtered set of rows. No, this is a filtered set of rows. So you come in with an incoming filter context, then Calculate and Friends step in and do what they need to do. And then the relationship flow down
let's stick with that. Let's forget about bidirectional relationship flow down. Relationship flow down, and by relationship, the filters flow down. And the last step is doing the numbers, which is, imagine you went through all the steps and you have your filtered set of rows, and that is your filter context. That's it. And then you say, oh, sum of balance, and you go, boom, that's it. Or max of balance or min of balance, whatever you're doing, right? So that's the math part, and that's usually easy. There's usually little confusion around there, but the first three, you kind of go back and forth. So again, this video is on my channel. The whole playlist is there, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I'll just cover the highlights. So step one is detecting incoming filter context, and let's see if we can go full screen. Remember that DAX, when I'm thinking about measures, I'm always thinking about a cell, and I usually put something on there. I call it a working pivot table. It's not really a pivot table, but I coined this phrase when I was in Excel. And I put a pivot table there when I'm creating a measure, and I drop it on there as I'm working on it. And when I'm trying to debug it, I always think about it in terms of a single cell. And usually it doesn't matter which one you pick. I sometimes pick something which has a small number of rows or something like that. So so it doesn't really matter. So I say, I'm trying to figure out the sales or whatever I'm trying to figure out here. And then I say, I'm going to focus on this cell. And the first thing you do, first step, is you detect the incoming filter context. And that's coming from rows. That's coming from columns. Oops. Oh, boy. What happened there? Okay, there we go. Let's try that again. Yeah, that's coming from rows. That's coming from columns. That can come from slicers. That can come from here. Can it come from somewhere else? For now, this is it, right? So incoming filter context. That's step one. And next step, okay, yeah, we already talked about the row context transition, is calculate, and calculate can change that, and calculate can enforce its own filter. I'm going to skip through some of the stuff. So that's step two. So incoming filters was in here. You can see the countries United States, but calculate says, no. Well, actually, in this case, it says customer gender. So it adds it to that. Great. Some rules around that. I wouldn't go there. There's context transition. There is overriding of incoming filters. Go. And the next step is apply relationship. So now that the filtering is done by the first two steps, now the filters flow down. Woo, look at the animation. Great, right? So that's what filters flow downhill. And the last step is doing the numbers. So again, more details in here. And you know what? It wouldn't be fun if we didn't do a measure. So let's do a simple one. And I need to get more organized because, man, the class throws so many good examples at me. But we'll do something simple here. So we'll say, I want to calculate the monthly average for this. So imagine if this was in Excel, and this one is doing a sum right now, but instead of that, I just want to kind of do an average of this. Right? Now, the sales is sum, and most of you wouldn't fall for this. Let me close this. But maybe some of you may, I'm likely I did it as well. That so I'm going to remove this guy. That it's possible that I saw sales as a sum of sales amount, and I said, oh, I'm going to do an average sales, and that's going to be average amount. And I know a lot of you are, yeah, I mean, that's not the way to do it, but hey, they all start somewhere, right? So let's try average sales. And you notice that it's wrong, right? I mean, it's just way too small amounts. But we can talk about why it's wrong, what it's doing. Well, actually, let's talk about that. So what average sales is doing is looking at your data. So let's just step through the 4 rules. So in here, let's focus on this cell. So again, whenever you're trying to debug a measure, pick a cell.
what step one? I can, right? So incoming filter context. What is the filter context here? Can you say? Well, on the total row, there's nothing here, so there's no filter. Total is kind of the lack of filter, so good there. There is a slicer on the page though, so there's a filter context. And here, typically when we talk about filter context, well, when I talk about it, I always think of it in terms of table column equals value. That's going to keep you honest. Believe me, that's going to get you out of a lot of trouble. Yeah, so here it's calendar year equals 2016. That's my incoming filter context. Done, easy. Calculate. Is there a calculate in here? No, there isn't. Average sales is just average sales. That's it. So C does nothing. What about, so now we apply the relationships. So remember the incoming filter context was calendar year equals 2016. So now that filter flows down, let's do blue, flows down from here to here, and the sales table gets filtered. If this step were not to happen, then any other filter on the lookup table wouldn't really have an impact on our math, right? So now it gets filtered, and lastly we do a match. So now we have a filtered table, sales. It kind of looks like this, but it's filtered to year 2016, and then we go through the sales amount, which is here, and we do an average of this. So hopefully by now you understand that why you're getting the numbers you're getting, because ignore the numbers at the top. The numbers here are pretty small. So $5, so you're averaging this. But that's not what we set out to do. We wanted to do an average of, these values. So when I look at something like this, I go, oh, we need to go month by month, figure out what the sales is, and then average it up. Whenever you have something like that, like, oh, we need to go row by row for months, or row by row in customer, immediately I think of an X function, because that's what X functions do. They are an iterator. They loop through tables, right? So you can say sum X customer. For every customer, calculate this and then sum it up. So let's write that up. Let's do new measure, and we'll say average monthly sales. Monthly, I don't know, something like that. I always get stuck up on names. So I'm gonna go row by row in the month, but there isn't a table for the month values. It's a column, and I can't use that. I need a table. But you can manufacture that using values, which is a pretty flexible function, and I can say month, year. Let's just go with that, right? So value, so I have a table now, and now I need to go row by row over this. So I'm just going to say X, and this is slightly problematic. This, I wish, well, bear with me. So I say, okay, I'm going to go row by row. So X functions, some X functions, and I'm not worried about which X function. So go row by row on month, year, and for each of them, calculate sales with me, right? Iterator. And then do what? Oh, I want you to average it. Make sense? That's how I think about it. But of course, that's not how you write it. Unfortunately, you write it like this. But isn't it odd that the thing that before X comes last? That's the last thing that happens in the calculation. So hopefully that made sense. So yeah, so X steps in first. Forget about the average for now. Go month by month, figure out the sales, and then, hey, what do I do? I mean, I got 886, 847, I got that. What do you want me to do? Oh, average it. And of course, you have the other functions. You can sum it, you can max, you can min, and you can also do filter X. What does that do? Well, there's no filter X. It's called filter, but it's an X function. And it's saying, yep, go row by row. And, well, this one is going to, well, this one doesn't make sense here. But you can say sales is greater than the average sales. Ooh, we would write that. Oh, that would be an awesome one. So let's do da-da-da. I'm going to change it back to average X values. And here I'm going to do 0. And average monthly sales. And notice that, yeah, it's what seems right. Now, of course, this is where I loved Excel, because you could, just select these cells and kind of make sure that this average is correct. There are two options to kind of validate that. You can click here and export data. I do that sometimes, but usually when I'm working on a complex model, what I would have is something which is connected to an Excel pivot table, which is connected to my Power BI desktop as I'm building it. So I'll show that to you really quick. 58328. So I'm going to go to Excel, and I usually do a new file, and I will say data from analysis services, because they're all the same. It's and let me grab the 58328. So even though I'm connecting to Power BI desktop, but in here you say analysis services because it's kind of the same thing, and you connect the model and you say finish. So now I have a pivot table, and now I can say by calendar, give me the month year, give me the year slicer. Oops. And give me, let's say, sales and average monthly sales. So you get the idea here, and I'm here, and I can just say, and you can see down at the bottom 1372802, and that is the right answer. That's what the measure calculated. So often when I'm really into it, and again, I end up creating hundreds of measures. I mean, a simple model would have 50 measures. So to debug this, I would often always have an Excel thing connected to my Power BI model. And if you saw me do it, the only key thing you need is the port, localhost and port. And that DAX Studio can tell you. There are other ways to do it. Matt Allington has an amazing template you can use. But I just pick up the port from here. Oops, I put my mouse there. But yeah, 58328. Localhost, and that's how you connect to your Power BI desktop. And this is a throwaway file, so this is I'm only using for debugging. And by the way, sometimes people see me do stuff like this, and they say, why would you show month sales by month? And this is what I call a working pivot, my friend. So this I'm defining just to get the measure working. So there's a working pivot that I use, there's a debug pivot that I use, and there's obviously the display pivot. So I might display this totally differently. This might just be a simple card or something like that. Okay, cool. So I'm pretty tempted to do a calculation where we're calculating wherever sales are higher than the monthly sales. Wouldn't that be cool? So let's see if we can do it just visually. So our average is 1372, and this one is higher, this one is higher, this one is higher, this one is higher, and this one is higher, this one is not, right? So it would somehow flag it, or I don't know, do something like that. So wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be like epic? Awesome. And imagine for month it doesn't make sense, but imagine for customers, where you're either filtering down to customers who have greater than average sales. Those are my top customers. I'm gonna focus on that. And of course you don't have to go with the average sale. You can say what is the top 10th percentile for the sales? What is that mark? And show me the customers with more sales than that, something like that. Okay, so I'll contain myself though. I'll curb my enthusiasm, and let's see how we have 119. Awesome, that DAX thing really charged me up. I was a little low on energy, but I'm feeling pretty epic right now. So let's see, what are you guys asking about? Let's do a new page here. Oh, you know what? I should actually, before we go anywhere else, I wanted to cover, where's Talk Power BI? Is that Talk Power BI? No. So some of you were asking questions on the Talk Power BI group, which is awesome. I try to answer Shanob's question from yesterday about the Salesforce 2000 role limit, and I answered some of them. Oh, some other folks. So James, oh gosh, I think he's in my class. Yeah, so yeah. So gosh, hey, hey guys, if you are in my Learn Power BI program, I know you guys are so active inside the student group, and I am just thrilled to see you kind of be active here as well. One of my students taught me such a beautiful phrase, and I love it. And it was Keith Nail. He was in our beta class, our very first class, which I taught, where there was no course. We built it on the way. And he said, to teach is to learn twice, and I've always held that close to my heart, and I love seeing you guys do it too. Yeah, I mean, there's so much awesomeness, guys. I mean, yeah, I mean, you really learn so much more by helping others. So some I answered, some other folks are answering, which is awesome. So that's great. What else did I want to show you? Anything in the course? So hey, yeah, quick shout out to the course. Yeah, of course, you guys have a chance to. If you're part of the challenge, you're gonna have a chance, an opportunity. Chance, the same thing. You're gonna have an opportunity to win a seat on the course. The enrollment is opening next week. If you, I think there's like an early bird page you can go to, learnpowerbi.com/earlybird. Let's see if that works. And that has a countdown on there, so you can get on the wait list. But I think I'll share the details either tomorrow, Wednesday, or Thursday about how you can kind of participate in that and how you can kind of, you know, how we're going to run that thing where you have a chance to win the seat to the course. So that's coming. And if I didn't say it earlier, day 5 is going to be epic. So day 5 is going to be an all-day live. We'll see. 9 to 5. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Okay, let's go to your questions. Yes. So Shabi has a great question, and right away I can say that this earns the Power On badge of lightning. So let's do this. Come on, people. Where's my lightning badge? So you can earn the lightning badge if your question is simple, but I end up giving you a complicated answer. I think that's a great definition for that. So let's answer the question directly for now. So I have months, Jan 2013, Feb 2013, and how do I sort them correctly? Now, you saw in my model that I have month names like that, and they sort correctly by default. So I have a month here, and you can see that, well, it's filtered. Let's take away the filter. But yeah, it's January 4, 2014, February 2014, and so forth. So the way it's done is you would go to your calendar table, and my friends, calendar table, I'll talk about that in a little bit, but and you would go to your calendar table, and let's start with something simple, month. So we have month, and you have the sort by column, and notice it's sorted by month num. So January is 1, December is 12th. But it doesn't have to be. A lot of companies, I have heard of companies whose fiscal year starts in February, in July. That was Microsoft. That was my life for a big time. And it starts in October. A lot of government organizations. And of course, then there are the 445 calendars, which are totally amazing. They're awesome. Yeah. They're awesome because they're so hard to deal with in the old world, and the new world, it's so much easier. So fiscal month, so you notice we have fiscal month, and I'm using a Microsoft month, July. It starts in July. So this, oops, I didn't fix it. So this is supposed to be sorted by fiscal month num. And December is 6th month. So let's see how that works. So that one, if you would, and that one is amazing because just by having a fiscal year in year, let's do that really quick. So let's, I'm going to grab sales from here. And I'm going to do 2 graphs. Oops. I wanted to keep sales. So we have month year, but I wanted to show you kind of calendar year. So let's do, so instead of month year, I'm going to put the calendar year and calendar month. And let's see if we can do a matrix. Oops. Great, and you see here it's going 2014, January, February, March, 2015, January, February, March. Perfect, right? But just by having those columns, the fiscal year and fiscal month, you can say, show me by fiscal year, and you can define your own fiscal year, whether it starts in January or December. I don't care. It doesn't matter. and you go to fiscal month, and if you go in here, what happened here? I think I made a mistake. Hold on. Fiscal month sort by. Oh, okay, I know. So let's go. Oh. Okay, that's better. Oh, sorry. I'm messing up. I'm mixing. So rule 1, never mix calendar, filters, columns, and fiscal. So that's what I was doing. But notice here that 2000 F5 2014 was a partial year. There's no data before January. So it seems to start at January. That's why I got confused. But notice the fiscal year 2015, it starts in July and then starts in July again. So it runs July through June. And you can define your own one. Calendar tables are awesome. My rule is that if you have any single column which has a date data type or date time, well, date data type, let's stick with that, then you should have, thou shall have a calendar table. And just search for calendar on my channel. And there's a free download. There's a whole playlist. There's like a few videos which talk about calendars. It's one of my favorite topics. And inside the course, I actually covered it in quite a bit of detail. There's more stuff than is available on the YouTube channel, and I plan to add even more. It's that gift that keeps on giving, my friend. Isn't that cool? Okay, great. So back to this question. All you need is a column which is numeric and is, let's say it's 1 for January 2013, 2 for February 2013, 3 for March 2013, and so forth, or something like that. It doesn't have to be sequential. It just needs to be a number which is greater. There are many ways you can do it. You could go in your model, and for your month year, you can say year times 100 plus. Actually, that's what I've done. So notice my month year num. So month year num. So this one is sorted by the month year num, and for my month year num, I've just said 2015, which is year times 100 plus month number. That's it. And then I said sort this one by that one, and now it's not going to be alphabetical anymore. But that's not the reason this question earned what are we calling this again? The power on badge of lightning. Okay, that's not the reason. The reason is that people do not realize that the sort by column is not just the calendar table where it applies. Oh, by the way, so of course Power BI does its own calendar, which I hate it. I think there's a way to turn it off. And guys, just do your own calendar table. It's so much easier. And go to my channel. You can download it, and it's so much more flexible. And it's all about control. If you like others telling you this is how you should do things, then yes, let Power BI do it. And yeah, it's okay for beginners, but sooner or later you're gonna hit that spot where you're gonna what, it's not good enough for me. I just want something different. I just want to mix these 2 ice cream flavors. Can you do that? And you can do that if you just do it your own. So the calendar table, you have complete control about how you structure the columns you want. And calendar table is one of those things where you would think that is the same for all companies out there. That's how I started off. But then I started going to companies, visiting, doing training, and almost every single place, they would throw something new at me. Somebody wanted to see weeks. Somebody wanted to see, one company wanted to see academic calendars. So believe me, you need to have kind of your own calendar table. Whew. But, guys, coming back to the power on badge of lightning. I said that right. Power on badge of lightning because calendar table is not the only place you can use it. You can use it in other spots as well. And I'll give you one example. Let's see if I've already done that here. So in the customer table here, customer. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there's this field, full name sorted, which does have a sort by column as well. And it's sorted by customer sales. And you can figure out how do you define that. You do define it by last year, by all time. But what that does is that normally when you grab a customer, full name, you see an alphabetical list, right? Ooh, man, we're having some fun today. Awesome, guys. Thank you. Again, to teach is to learn twice. Yeah, I love this stuff. So it's alphabetical. Is that okay? No big deal. I can add sales on there, and I can sort it descending. There we go. Oops, that's descending. Descending. Top customers. Bingo. Done, right? But what if, my friend, that was a slicer? Now, I'll be damned if, and Power BI changes so fast, if they have put some way to sort it in here. But last I checked, there was no way to sort it. And so this was a real example. Sales team came to me and I was like, Avi, I mean, we got a lot of customers. I don't really care about, Joy Ramos. No offense to him, but just $6,000. I want to focus on the big ones. So we had built a whole customer report, and they just wanted to see the top customers at the top in the slicers. So they can just go boom, boom, boom. And of course, the slicer itself is dynamic. So if they would filter on Canada or US, it'll show top customers in Canada, in US. Oh man, I never get tired of that. That thing is so amazing. Okay, so here we want it sorted. And now if I use the other field, so okay, so this is why. What happened here? Why is Brian? Okay, so hey, I might have messed up somewhere. Why does it? I'll debug this later. I don't know why it's not working, but it was supposed to have Jordan Turner at the top. Okay, mystery for another day. We'll see it. But you can do that. You can do a whole bunch of other stuff. So imagine one of the students had this requirement where, imagine you have territory and country, and we have a list, and we don't want to show it alphabetical. Come on. Which report shows it alphabetical? Usually you show kind of important countries first. Sorry, let me rephrase that in case I offend somebody. You focus on the countries that have biggest sales or something like that. And the key is that sometimes when you slice and dice it, I'll just throw cost on there. Oops, because I'm lazy. But the challenge is that sometimes when you slice and dice it, let's try by product subcategory. Sometimes when you slice and dice it, it's possible that, so let's say you sorted by this, and United States is the top, but it's possible that for some of these, United States wouldn't be at the top, and I'm trying really hard to find it. Let's stick with this. Bib shorts, who buys more? Okay, there we go. So actually, so overall, we have United States, and then Australia, United Kingdom, and Germany. So they are our bigger markets, and let's say we want to see it in this order, or this is what my student had. She said that we want to see the top two, United States and Australia, they should be frozen. They shouldn't move. And then in the order of the sales. Woo! Oh man, isn't that fun? Man, that's like really cool. And we did it using the sort by column. And so you can freeze it so right now it's descending by cost. So notice United States, Australia, United Kingdom. Just hold on to United States and Australia. But if I go to cleaners, okay, that's a bad one. Where was that? Crank sets. There was somebody where Canada was the number 2. No? Oh, there we go. Bike racks. So notice how Canada pipped Australia, but we don't want that to happen. We want that to be stitching. We want United States and Australia to be sticky. So you're going to have scenarios like this, and you can solve those by sort by column. I mean, that's not the only approach. Maybe you can do it a few different ways, but that's the one I use. That was a great question. So I think now we have a official definition of power on badge of lightning. Let me write that. When you ask a simple question and I provide a complex answer. So we talked about mindset. Don't stop saying DAX is hard. If you think it's hard, it's always going to be hard for you, my friend. So we don't say complex or hard. So when we say amazing, like you don't write complex formulas, you write amazing formulas. Yeah, I mean they sure could be a little complex, but that's because they do amazing stuff. So yeah, okay, great. Oh, interesting. So let's, oops, why does it do that? So you guys have some good questions. Hey, by the way, feel free to answer others' questions. I know it was happening one time when I was too slow, which is usually the case, where some of my students from the Learn Power BI program were there, and they were answering questions before I got to them. Okay, Bill is here. Awesome. Deepak, Microsoft MVP. Yay, super sweet to have you here. How do you call? Okay, yeah. So Shabi, I don't have an answer for you. You had, yeah. So you asked this earlier. Is there a way? So that gets a sad face. I don't know. I love dirty tricks, and I wish I could think of one. But in the field section, so what Shabi is asking about in this, notice how it's sorted alphabetically. But sometimes alphabetically is the worst form of sorting. The best I can say is that you can create hierarchies, which would show things at the top. So let's go to the calendar table and let's create a hierarchy. So in here, I would say year, month. Did that work? Oh, year, month, and date. Date. Can you move a hierarchy? No. So that's odd because hierarchies in Excel show at the top. But hierarchies sometimes can help you organize things, and then they can come in and just say either click a single thing, year. What did that do? Yeah, that put year over here. Or they can click the whole hierarchy. Let's try that. And that would put the whole thing in there, year, month, date. So hierarchies is the best thing, the closest thing I can think of. And let's see in Excel, how does that look like? So if you go here and say data refresh, and if you go to calendar, yeah, notice how, in fact, hierarchies are treated extra special, maybe too special in Excel. So I kind of find this a little annoying that it clubs everything else in more fields and you have to expand. I wish it would be automatically expanded by default or something like that. So if you had 3 hierarchies and people were connecting to it using Excel, and they can connect to it in Excel even if your model is in Power BI Desktop by using Analyze an Excel feature in PowerBI.com. So in Excel, hierarchies put things in easy reach. That's the best I have for you. But otherwise, yeah, it would be nice to kind of have them organized in a specific order. Let's see, what was the other question? So around, not perfect though. You know, that seems like it should be there. This functionality should exist. Okay, Adam is asking, how can I create 3 different date slicers to get sales for a product for 3 different time periods in the same report? I'm gonna tell me more. To give me an example, like what would you pick? Give me a sample, a likely scenario of 3 different slicers you would pick. And hey, I'm not like judging you or anything. I really want to know, and I'm gonna make one up, but you can kind of steer me. So I don't know. Maybe I select Jan 2017, and then March 2017, or July 2017. And I would love to understand what is the scenario. And man, actually, this is a very valid one, because I mean, I'm sure there are tons of scenarios where you would want to see that. For example, let's say these were the 3 months where we ran a promotion, and we just want to compare those 3. We want to see month by month, but only the month we ran a promotion. So tell me a little bit more, like what kind of date range are you selecting? Are you selecting a month? Are you selecting specific dates? Like I want to select from January 1 to January 20, and why was that so hard? March 13th to March 26th. Or you're selecting kind of month or a range of months. Maybe this is July plus August. And why are you selecting it? Why is it relevant? What is connecting these 3? So
So get it says right. So yeah, tell me more. Tell me why. What connects these three in your scenario? Is it you're running a promotion? What is happening? Why are you interested in these 3 days? There was a maybe that's the answer. Okay. Hold on. Let me see this real quick. You want to answer? That's a good one. Okay, so I think Adam said that I'm on the right track. So let's go with that assumption. So there are 3 time periods we're interested in, and there could be tons of scenarios. We ran a promotion or did something like that, and this, boy, you guys are cracking today. I think this one gets the power on badge of lightning, and some of you might be groaning like, oh shit, that means Avi's gonna really long answer. But guys, this is good. This is good because there are different ways to solve this. And I already know one, and I already know that there are going to be multiple ways to do that. And I love those scenarios because once you've figured out DAX and you can write any measure you want, pretty much. After some Googling, I Google stuff all the time. But then it's all about trade-offs. Like, oh, I can do it 3 different ways. Which one is better? What are the trade-offs? And usually it's not about right or wrong. It's like, oh, this gives me that, this gives me that. And you have to choose. It's all about the choice. So let's talk about, so I'm going to throw a few answers here. I hope. I hope. Yeah, let's do this. So this one is for, and I'm not sure if I'll just call you Adam, if that's okay. This one is for Adam, my friends. So let's go, and we'll do something simple. We'll just say sales, and we'll do another one of these. And by the way, when you see me do this, I'm doing Control-C, Control-V. I saw a comment on YouTube like, how are you sliding that table? You know, and I wish there was like PowerPoint kind of stuff where you can hold down Control and copy it. That would be nice. But I just do Control-C, Control-V. And I'm going to make this a table. And we're going to go in here. So again, just to frame it, what we're trying to do is we want to select 3 different date slicers and 3 different date slicers. Oh boy. Oh man. This is good stuff, guys. How many watching? So we have a joke in our class that you know how your grandma would tell you that nothing good happens after 2 a.m. or 12 midnight, whatever your curfew is, and she would tell you to come back after the time. Your grandma or your mom, if she was strict. And no, well, all the teenagers know that all the awesome stuff happens after that time, whenever the curfew is supposed to start. So in our class, we do a weekly Q&A call, and it's scheduled for an hour, but I don't think we've ever gone for an hour. The maximum we hit, the record so far, was 3 hours and 2 minutes, and that was hit by not the current class, that was hit by the class of July. So kudos to you, my friends, asking great questions. So I usually hang around till there are great questions, and I was going somewhere with that. Oh yeah. So sometimes the best stuff happens at the very end of the call. Sometimes I would do like a last call. Hey, last call, guys, going once, going twice, and then somebody would ask a question, and it would turn out to be like this really cool question. We would spend some time on it. So this is really awesome. So again, I talk about trade-offs. So let's talk about this. So I'm thinking, what is the simplest way? I think simplest way is advanced filtering. So let's go here. And again, this might not be the answer you're looking for, but I'm hoping one of them would hit. So we have sales, and in here, let's throw in a month calendar. And folks who saw that, they like already know where I'm going with this. And isn't it kind of irritating how you have to sort it correctly? Anyway, sorry, wenting. Let's filter down to a specific year. Oh, actually, we're going to do a filter later on. And in here, let's do month here. Boom. Great. So now we're seeing all of it, but Adam's requirement is that we see 3 different time ranges.
And I'm gonna stick with this example. So I want to select January, March, and let's do May. You know, just so I don't confuse myself. January, March, and May. And we're gonna make it 2016 because we don't have 2017 data in a model. So January, March, and May with me. And the folks who saw advanced filtering like know already. And I'm gonna go into month year, make that a page level filter, and I would say January, March, and May. That's one way. But what if we wanted specific dates? We wanted January 1 to January 20th and something like that. Well, then you can do advanced filtering. And let's try that. So let's do oh, weird. So yeah, let's do date, page level filter, and we'll say advanced filtering is on or after let's just do March 8th and on or before. Can I type it in? Maybe I can. March 16th. Apply. Oh, sorry, wrong year. March 16th. There we go. So we got the first time range, and if you put date in there, you would notice that it is filtered. So, what? Oh, wait. Sorry. Date there. So notice that, yeah, it's going March 8th to March 16th. And how do we do 3 filters though? For 3 filters, I'm pretty sure we can drag date in again. And it works. Yay, right? So you get the idea, and you would go advanced filtering. And I'm not going to step through that, but you would do the same logic. So you can have as many filters as you want. Great. Is that easy? Well, it depends on who you're talking about. It saved us, oh boy. So yeah, I mean, gosh, it's all about trade-offs, right? So it's like squeezing the bubble. So we could have solved this in a different way, and I'll talk about those different ways in multiple tables or calendar column. I think this one is going to be a winner. But there, we as an author would have to do some heavy lifting. And that's why I didn't go there first, because I don't know, maybe it would take me like 10 minutes just to show it. Maybe 15 minutes, I don't know. So it would take us some heavy lifting. But you decide where it's most elegant to solve the problem, where it's more efficient, I would say. You can solve it on the author side, or you can squeeze the bubble and make it somebody else's problem. And you can push it to your customers. And again, I started my first model. I built it for myself. It ended up being used for hundreds of users. And now I always build every single model with the same thing in mind. So guys, if you're thinking, I'm gonna build this quick model only for me, that's may not what may happen. It may end up being used by hundreds, thousands of users, and you want to be ready for that. So, you know, model is a temple. I didn't get to talk about that stuff. I'll come back and talk about it. Maybe models and templates. So yeah, keep it clean. So so you can solve it on the back end, author, or you can squeeze the bubble and make it the end customer's problem. So the way Power BI works, the way you should think about this is that there is an author. Usually it's just one person, or maybe a very small team, but then they publish the model, and then hundreds or thousands of users can create reports. Authors would create some reports, but then you have empowered this whole army of business users to go mad at it, well, go crazy on it, and create any reports they want, right? It's about self-service BI, all of that stuff. It's true, you can have it. It's not like a fad, it's not a buzzword. So you want to enable them. And if you don't do the heavy lifting yourself, then they might end up doing shit like this. This is shitty. Right? If I have to put like 3 advanced filters to do 3 date ranges, that's insane. And you know, I didn't even want to do it to show you as an example. So depending on how complex the scenario is, that might not be worth it. So it is an option, but you have to kind of ask yourself if it's worth it or not. So let's explore the other ones. And I'm pretty tempted to just jump to the last one, which I think is going to be a winner, but I'm going to hold off on that. Can you solve it using multiple tables? Okay, I'm going to take a try at it, and we'll see if it works. So home, get data. Oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to show it, but the idea is similar to what we did with advanced filtering. But instead of it being there, imagine that we were able to drag and date here, make it a slicer, and this one does have this amazing new slicer options. So notice that you can have this as a classic one, kind of a list. You can have it drop down, of course, but you also have the between one, and you can stick that here. But this, of course, only lets you do one date. So let's say 3/8/2016, and we go 3/16/2016, something like that. Oh, oops, I messed that up. Great, but then if we bring in a new one, it's not gonna work. I mean, I can select a different date here. Let's try January 15, 2016, and actually, you'll see what it's gonna do. So my hypothesis is gonna zero everything out. January 30, 2016. Ready? I think it's gonna zero everything out. No? What? There's no data set that matches these. Oh, 2017, 16. What's going on? January 30, 2016. Guys, help me out. It's not. Oh, there we go. That was weird. Yeah, so, it's kind of a Venn diagram, right? I mean, you're saying, how do I draw a circle here? You're saying January 15th to January 30th, and March 6th to March 16th. There's no overlap. So when you apply both filters, it doesn't work. But, and I'm not going to do it. It'll probably take too long. But imagine if you created 3 date fields. And hey, my favorite solution is still to come, so hold on for that. But let's go to, where is my edit queries? This is it, calendar. There we go. So here you would go in and you would say add column, and you would just say duplicate column. Duplicate column. And so yesterday you heard me talk about always turn on the formula bar, because it's going to just help you get used to looking at M. And once you look at it, it's not rocket science. I mean, look at this. I did duplicate column, and I already know that this is the name of the new column, and I don't want to call it date copy. I want to call it date 2, right? And then, oops, let me zoom out. So that's my new column, and then date, and then I'm going to go back here again and duplicate it again and call this date 3. Whew. You see where I'm going with this? So the next filter is, hold on, guys. Where's my budget 2 file? Okay, now we're happy. So when we use the same date field, it didn't work, but I'm going to make this a date 2 field. Oh boy. But yeah, this is some heavy lifting, because you're going to have to do some kind of a DAX measure, which says, gets date 1 range, gets date 2 range. Might not even work. I'm frankly, at this point, I'm unsure, but hey, it was worth a stab. So let's jump to the solution that I have in mind. So, and that solution is more in line of where the date has an attribute. So, and that's what I was asking Adam about, like, what connects those 3 date ranges? Like, why are you interested in those 3 arbitrary date ranges? Well, because they're not arbitrary. Something happened on that time. Something happened. Maybe let's go with we were running a promotion, and that's why it's important. So what you can do is you can add an attribute in your calendar table to enforce that. So some days were special, and now that I've given you this idea, you go, of course, just like we in our calendar table we can mark holidays, we can mark weekday and weekend, we can mark, hey, these are the specific dates that the promotion ran. And I'm not going to actually do it, but the idea is similar to weekday and weekend. I mean, you would have some logic, or maybe you do a merge from, maybe you have a table. Let's just do that really quick. So maybe you have a table anywhere, doesn't matter where you keep it, but where you say promotion start and promotion end. Ooh, actually, this is a fun query editor exercise. So if somebody wants to have fun with a query editor, this is a great way to do it. So let's say we go January 8th, 2016 and January 30th, 2016, promotion 1, and March 5, 2016 to March to 28, 2016, and let's do another one, May 15, 2016 and May 19th, 2016. Right, so let's say that this is the table we have, and you can kind of source it in, or sometimes when I'm in a hurry, I just paste it. So I just say enter data, and I copy from Excel and just paste it. And you can always paste over it again. So you can come back here and just paste new stuff. So for example, if let's say I got this date wrong, and it was 3/17, 2016, I can copy this and I can come back here and paste it again. Did that work? Supposed to work. Let's see what's going on. Oh, okay. Let it play out. So, oops. Table, got it. So this is my promotion date range. And I just want to show you really quick that you can change it using copy paste. I'm pretty sure you can. So you're here, and I'm going to do, notice the March 28th. Okay, well, it is something funny, but generally it works. Okay, I'm cancel out of it. Okay, great. So it doesn't matter. I mean, you can keep it in a file, and then you merge this information to your calendar table, and you mark each date. And you can mark it as we were running a promotion, simple as that. Or you can mark it as, oh, we were running this promotion. Oh, this was the Easter promotion. This was the Independence Day promotion. With me? Right? And now you're going to have the column. Now, of course, the fun journey begins there, my friend. What if you could run multiple promotions in a given day? Well, now you can't just do a column. It wouldn't work because now the relationship is many to many. How is that many to many? Well, one date, one promotion can be run on multiple dates, and on the other side, one date can now have multiple promotions. That's what we're changing. So now it's not a one-to-one or one-to-many. It's one-to-one. It's one-to-many. So now you need a mapping table. So we wouldn't go there, but for now, let's just say we can only run one promotion on a day, and now every day is going to have a column which will say this promotion is running. So I'm not actually going to do it, but in the end, you get a column, something like weekday, weekend, holiday, and then you go back to your model, and you have that field come in, and instead of these guys, you're gonna have I'm just gonna use weekday, weekend as so instead of here, you're gonna have promotion or no promotion, or you're gonna have promotion, Easter promotion, July 4th, and then you will just select, hey, show me the times when we were running a promotion. Boom. And that's it. And filters down to whatever the set of dates is. It could be 3, it could be 30. So in that way, the solution is really elegant. I mean, you don't, why 3? I mean, what if you want to look at 4 dates or 5 days or 10? That one doesn't care. It could be a 30 sets of arbitrary dates, right? This table could be a mile long, could span 10 years and define hundreds, thousands of promotions, and that approach would still work. So my friend, that one gets my vote. That one is better. But of course, if you have multiple promotions on same day, then you can do multiple columns like promotion 1, promotion 2, promotion 3, but then that doesn't scale, and that one might be many to many. But if you just have one attribute, like, hey, were we running a promotion or not, that one you can certainly do. If you have a rule that only one promotion can run on any given day, that would work as well. or something like that. So calendar column, that one kind of gets my vote to quickly select arbitrary dates. And you notice what we did here. We created more work for the author, not just in doing it, but gosh, thinking about it. This stuff, sometimes takes time to figure this stuff out. So yeah, you did more work here, but it makes the job of all those thousands of users who are going to use your model, it makes their life so much easier. Woo! So much easier, my friend. Okay, great. So so advanced filtering was an option. Multiple tables, columns, date columns, and then DAX. I'm not sure. If somebody is really, what's the word, narcissistic, if you love pain, love some DAX pain, then this might be a good thing to see if you can solve that. I mean, theoretically, it's a valid idea that you have 3 different date columns in the same table and make them slicers, and you would have to remove the relationship. So the relationship couldn't be active, couldn't work. So you deactivate the relationship, and then figure out, collate the actual date range. Oh man, I might even try it. So what I'm thinking is, help me out, guys, if you think this sounds reasonable. But so let's say there's no relationship, because once you define a relationship, then it wouldn't work. So the relationship isn't active between the calendar and the sales table. And then you start cobbling together the date range. So you go and you use dates between. Dates between is like the ultimate flexibility. You can do start date and end date. So here you say date, I'll just say DT1 start and DT. This is not the actual syntax, but I'm just DT1 end. Got it with me? And then dates between, we'll say date 2 start, date 2 end. And then you go dates between. And hey, I'm not saying this would work, but that's what I'm thinking right now. Date 3 end. So now you have these. And one function which I've never used in a production setting, I've never used it in a client. I only used it when I was writing the book. Is you would union these, and now you have this filter, like great, which has these 3 date ranges, and then you would activate the relationship using use relationship. Wow, bloody hell! I'm gonna take a screenshot of that. Did that work? I don't know if it worked. My screenshot. Oh boy. Oh shit, that didn't work. Anyway, my brilliant idea. Between, dates between, what was the other one? Union and use relationship. Maybe. So yeah, so if you're looking for some DAX fun, this is it. Doesn't get better than that. Okay. Okay, so you get it why, so I'm not sure if you guys are happy about this, but the definition is apt, at least. You ask me a simple question, and the power on Baz means that I'm going to give you a long answer. Let's see what else you guys are talking about. So Alejandro is asking, I've heard that you should start any business intelligence panel by asking the questions you want to answer. What do you think about that? So I'm not sure what he means by panel. I think he means, Alejandro, you mean like a dashboard, something like that. So that's a great question. That's a great question. And I talked about it a little bit in the modeling video. Where is that? So the data modeling video, I talk about that. And I was saying it a little bit kind of tongue-in-cheek, kind of jokingly, but maybe I was serious as well, where I said that you ignore most of what your customer says initially. So I think there's certainly some truth in that. So you should not let your customer dictate what they, how do I put it? Certainly not the design of the dashboard, and obviously they shouldn't dictate any design of your model as well. So the V1, I don't let them dictate it, and I would say that I'm just following better advice. So for visualization, Stephen Few is my mentor. He doesn't know it, but he is. Great author. It's Information Dashboard Design. That's the book I've read, and that's my Bible. By Stephen Few. PDF? I don't want a PDF. There we go.
So that's my Bible, and he warns you that don't let them define it, because they're not the experts. You are, and you are a visualization expert as well. And it's not hard. I mean, just read the book. I mean, you're gonna know so much more. And one thing you're gonna stop doing is, should I show you? Yeah, build these horrible dashboards. If you, I don't know, right? Yeah, I mean, people simple is better. That's a summary of it. Simple is better, and he talks about the concept of pixel economy. But usually, most users, business users, don't have that knowledge, don't have that expertise. So you don't let them design it. You just kind of listen to them, and they would tell you a lot of things that they want, but you have to almost translate that and give them what they need. So hear what they want, give them what they need. And hey, a lot of it, frankly, that's the art and science of this work. There's a lot of art in doing this. There's a lot of personal communication, all of that sort of stuff, and I enjoy that part as well. And if you're really into it, probably you do too. Most people who really shine with Power BI love both parts, and I love kind of straddling the tech and the business slash person where we have to talk to people. And I love kind of going away and holding myself for hours and just immersing myself in data. And I don't know if you guys have seen what was that movie, A Beautiful Mind? And who's the star in that? Beautiful Mind, and it's the gladiator guy. Now of course I have to look it up. Russell Crowe, of course, that's what I'm going to say. So Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind, there's a scene where he's looking at numbers and they just all kind of fit for him. And guys, it's going to happen to you. I mean, you're going to start looking at source data sets and you're going to see this picture emerge. So it's pretty cool. So I love that. I love the art and science. But coming back here, in my modeling talk, I talk about that you mostly ignore what they're saying. I mean, you can write it down, you can record it, but you're not building that. You're building a model. So yeah, so I'm not sure. I would love to hear what others think about it. Yeah, Carl, help me out. Yeah, Russell, that's right. So others may have a different opinion. I would love to hear that. But I believe that when I'm interacting with a customer, I'm not really thinking about the report. I'm thinking about in terms of the data model. So I'm trying to figure out what is their data table, what are the lookup tables. So I'll say data table is defined by the business process. So I'll say what is the business process they're trying to report on, right? And a business process should be something tangible, something you can see and understand. Sales transaction is a swipe. Warehouse shipment is something loading on a truck and going there, right? So it should be something tangible. It shouldn't be something abstract. So you get that and you do the data table and then you say, okay, what's the who, what, where, when, how? And then you hear a little bit from them, but you tune everything out about whatever they're saying about the report. And then I say, okay, I got it. The who is a customer. Who is maybe also the employee who shipped the order. So they can be multiple who's, multiple what, where, when, how. All of those can be multiple, but you kind of figure that out. So now you have your lookup tables. And then I bring the data in and I define just a few basic measures. In sales, just simple stuff, sum, average, usually just one, sum. And then I kind of slice and dice it and see what's going on. And that is when I start thinking about the report. So at this point, I have nothing on this series of blank screen. There's nothing going on. But then I start, except some debug pivots maybe, debug tables. Then I start thinking about, but they had asked for this. And usually if you do the modeling part right, that next step is usually very easy. Now, if they ask for something really complicated, we're like, oh man, that's going to be a really complex DAX measure. Don't go there. Don't go there yet. So this should feel like peeling an onion. You start at the outer layer, build something quick. Power BI is Agile BI, and so don't, if they have some crazy measure like I want to see whatever, don't do that at the start. Give them something basic, build a basic dashboard, and just iterate the heck out of it, and just go the next step, the next step, the next step. And here I'll share this with you. So hopefully it helps. Are we still talking about Power BI? This is about life as well, my friends. I mean, so let's say that this is our starting point, right? Let's make it bigger. So this is our starting point, and we think we have a map, and we say, Avi, we want to go there, right? So we want to go there. And that's it, Avi, build that thing for me. And you say, okay, I got that. And I built it for you. And let's say, man, this was a long road. They were asking for the moon. So it took me 6 months to build it. Now, all of you know what happens at the end of 6 months. Either you realize or they realize, or both of you realize that that wasn't where we wanted to go. I mean, gosh, we wanted to go here. And sometimes you would fight over it. Like they would say, hey, we told you to go here. You didn't listen to us. And you would say, no, look at your requirements. And that's the thing that happens all the time between IT and business, right? I mean, business says, oh, we need this. IT builds it. Business says, no, that's not what we said. And like, no, you said it. Here's the requirements document. I am a firm non-believer in requirements document. Yeah. In fact, I joked with my manager at Microsoft that the day I find myself writing a requirements document, I would quit my job. I quit before that. I know that was going to happen. I quit because I wanted to do this. I wanted to hang out with you guys. So inevitably you miss that. And then what happens then? You say, okay, that's going to take 3 months. And what happens then? Oh, nope. We wanted to be here actually. And you keep on going. It never ends. So you know what? Let's just give up that charade. We're not going to know. Nobody knows. I mean, things move too fast in business. So instead of that, let's just do this. So we're here. We think we want to go here, which is fair enough, but we're going to do this. Oops. We're going to do the small step and then reassess. This small step can be a week. This can be a days, right? And they say, okay. And then you say, oh, no. We want to go here. Okay, great. We'll course correct. We're now going there. And small step, and small step, and small step, and small step, and small step. And you're going to get to your final destination. So my friends, the shortest path between 2 points is not always the straight line. Isn't that cool? Hey? I mean, and if there are any science geeks here, if they're thinking about Einstein and theory of relativity and all that sort of stuff, it applies there too. I'm not sure why I'm saying that, but there's a connection there. There's a connection there. The shortest path between 2 points is not always a straight line. So if you want to, where you are and where you want to go, where you want to be, where you need to be, let's do that. You don't, if you say we're going to just march for 6 months and get there, no. Because then the route goes this way, right? Then that long march goes here and here and here and here, all that sort of stuff. Instead, you could do this small series of steps. Okay. Man, I talk for so long, I have to stick this on here as well. Whew. Okay, yeah, so Nick had some good ideas. Let's see. Boy, you guys have me chatting. That's good. Edit interactions. Nick is talking about edit interactions. That's interesting. Hey, love it. So yeah, so that's one thing I didn't think of, but you could do this. Let's just do duplicate. So let's do. So we have 3 graphs. We could do a date filter, so we could do 3 of these. So yeah, that's a valid idea. And what he's talking about, you can go to format, I think, and edit interactions. And here you can say that this one filters this, but does not filter this guy, does not filter this guy. This filter does not filter this one, does not filter this one, and this one only filters the bottom one. And here you can say, show me January to March 1, 2014. Did that work? Why? Okay, there we go. And this one is 5/1, 2015 to, let's say, 9/1, 2015. Should be 9/31. 9/30, something like that. Did that work? I think that worked. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, there we go. And this one can be 4/1/2016 and 8/1/2016. Oops. So this is valid, but I'm not really sure what the scenario is. What if this scenario we wanna see a continuous line, or we wanna show a continuous table? So depends on the scenario. But that's a way to do it. Perfect. So I'll stick it in there. Thank you, Nick, for sharing that. I'll say Nick Brady edit interaction. So that would have a very specific effect. Notice that here, once we're able to pull it off, then we can show a continuous graph. We don't have to break it into 3 graphs. But depending on the scenario, maybe this is what's needed, or maybe this is perfectly okay. Okay. Wait, you guys are talking to each other. I actually lost the thread. Okay, got it. So there's a whole thread going on about, can you get tables from 2 different data sources and link them together? Yes, you can link them together. Sorry, it was probably already answered. I see you guys chatting in there, but I'll just say really quick. So yeah, it's possible that this one is coming from one data source, and this one is coming from a different data source. Happens all the time. And you can also have that sales is coming from 2 different data sources. So maybe you're getting one set of sales numbers from here, or budget is coming from 10 different teams. That happens all the time, right? Every team is doing their own budget, and they put somewhere in the file, and then you kind of compile them together. So all of that, Query Editor is your magic wand for that, the clean shape transform. Oh, you know what? I'm going to give up. So you guys have been talking. If I missed a question, I'm just going to go bottom up. So, Nick, thank you again. Okay, good. So Adam is saying the customer should be able to compare different, even overlapping period sales. The report should be only 3 slicers and 3 value fields, 1 for each slicers. So thank you, Nick. I think Nick's solution is perhaps the simplest one, the simplest and most elegant for what you're looking for. But in a different scenario, maybe the other options could be valuable. Great, love the guy. So yeah, there are always multiple ways of doing things. So edit interactions, and I would obviously color code it. So I'll go back here and change. Well, you can color code it or use some delineation, do a simple line or something like that. But let's say here, and I'm gonna pick probably horrible colors, but and you can do some sort of shading, a little bit of shading here as well. So again, if you're following Stephen Few, he talks about pixel economy, so you use as few pixels as you can. So I'm hesitant in changing the background color here, and you could do that, but that uses up a lot of pixels. So if there's another way to do it, and you can do, of course, you can just draw a simple line. Simple line, where's simple line? Shapes line. Here we go. Oh gosh, rotation. So edit interactions maybe wins the day. Something like that. And of course, you don't even need a line sometimes. You can do the effect simply, not even by colors, but simply by using white space. And that's what Stephen Few talks about, that if you put this element right next to each other, we know, we as humans are smart, my friend. So we're going to know that, yeah, this one goes with this one goes with that, and so forth. So you can do a lot of things with white space where people would do boxes and lines and coloring and all that stuff. You don't need any of that. So notice how you organize it. And you put them close to each other, and the mind is going to make the connection that this guy is related to that. Okay, so that was good. Faisal. So Mickey, I don't think we got the link, or maybe I missed it. So you're asking about how can we convert a table to after? Oh, link posted in discussions, could not add in chat. Got it. Woohoo! So Adam is thanks about. Perfect. So let's go to Faisal's question. Ooh. How to have dynamic x-axis. If I have a slicer for manager, the visualization has employees, and when the visual is show only the employees reporting to select manager. Okay. And Mickey, I'm gonna get to you. So I think you said the discussions. Is it here? While I'm here. Come on. Okay, I'll do that later. Hey, Mickey, I'm not sure. Is it inside the class area? Inside our student area? I don't see it there either. So I'm not sure where the discussion thing is. Ooh. But help me out. So it wouldn't let you post a link. Post it in the Talk Power BI or Learn Power BI, whichever group. So the student group, that's for our class. I know you're a member there. Or over here. Or maybe you posted a comment. Okay. Nope, not here. Okay, so help me out with that, with the link. And but let's look at Faisal, and he said dynamic x-axis. So maybe I'm missing something, but this should be kind of built in. So employee, manager, and let's say I'm not sure what your data table is. So again, that's the terms that I think in, that your data table may be their timesheets. So which days they worked, that's your data table, and it's going to have an employee ID, and that's going to be connected to an employee table over here. And just like a customer table, it's going to have their attributes. It's going to have the ID, of course. It's going to have their name. I don't know. It's going to have their social, maybe some sensitive information, date of birth. It would have the date they started their job, and it would have their manager. So I'm going to use the customer table for that example. And guys, I'll try to get you this file. I'll post it in the Talk Power BI Facebook group or something like that. So what you're saying, I mean, I would say it happens automatically, but we'll see. So instead of employee and manager, I'm going to use customer and their state. And I would think, so that's pretty similar. And you would see how it works. So, and maybe it's possible that your scenario has some wrinkle in there, and that's why it's not working automatically. So I would love to understand what that wrinkle is, and we'll see if we can solve it for you. Of course, yeah. So in here, we have the customer, and we can say the city, country. So let me go back to your question. So you're saying, if I have a slicer for a manager, oh, okay, got it. And the x-axis should have that. But yeah, they all work the same. I mean, a graphic is based on a table of data. So we have these customers in a table on a chart. And if I say Australia, well, it's hard to see. Come on. Okay, let me pick maybe city. Yeah, how about that? Will be easy to see. So now we have cities, and now if I say Australia, Wollongong is pretty cool there. Canada, Cliffside. So you see how it's working, and the axis is dynamic, and typically all the other elements in here are dynamic as well. So as long as you have, so I think make sure you have like an employee table, which has the employee and the manager name and so forth. And then whatever data table, whatever data element you're showing on the graph. In this case, it's sales. For your case, it could be kind of hours billed or something like that. And then when you click manager from that employee table, it's going to automatically filter. Let me know if that helps. Okay. Whew. 2.5 hours. We still got 30 more minutes to go before we break the record of the Learn Power BI class of July. We went for 3 hours and 2 minutes. So guys, Tony Robbins, he's an impressive character. I admire him. I know he's a bit controversial as well. And there's this documentary on Netflix. It's a good one. You should watch it. And I hope to go to one of his events one day. But so far, the documentary is what I've seen it. And he, the interviewer at some point asks him this question, that how can you do this for 5 days or however long his thing runs? How can you do this? And he says, it's easy if you're being pulled rather than pushing. And interesting thought, eh? Right? So if you're kind of pushing yourself, if you find like that, oh, I gotta do this. At some point, you're gonna stop. You're gonna break. Like, no, this is too much. It's tiring. But when you're being pulled, right? You're like, yeah, right? That's a different feeling. And I feel lucky in that regard, that for most of the work that I do with my students, with you guys, I feel like I'm being pulled. Time flies when you're having fun. That's so true. So yeah, this doesn't feel like hour and a half until I really gotta go pee at some point. So that becomes a real challenge. But let's see if I missed something. And thank you so much for Nick. And I think somebody was helping Shabi as well. Thank you for that. Oh, Danielle Pinzon. Hopefully I'm saying it right. Is asked a question earlier. Hopefully you're still on. And she's asking, how do you structure data for financial information? That's a good one. So one of my warning still applies. Ran out of space. That often I see people building not models but reports in Power BI. So they would have a report in mind, and they would build that in using the query editor, not use some of the measures. So don't do that. So it's got a twofold answer. One, the model should look similar. It should have kind of a data table, and that can be your general ledger or something like that. And then your lookup tables, which could be, of course, the chart of accounts, or department or something else, reporting manager, things like that. And of course, time, calendar is always going to be there, maybe a fiscal calendar. So the same principles apply: who, what, where, when, how. But where it gets challenging, interesting, amazing is the reporting requirements. So often financial reports have a very strict structure in how they need to be laid out. And often I see people struggling with that quite a bit. And I tell them that there is an easier option, which is, and we have talked about this, that, that the idea here is to author, publish, and then consume in any reporting format that you like. So once you have a model, it doesn't matter how you build it, Excel, Power Pivot, Power BI Desktop, SSAS Tabular, whatever. Once you have it published, then you could connect an Excel report to it, a Power BI report to it. If you want a Tableau, ClickView, SSRS, all of that is good, right? So when you're looking for a very specific format, that I need this and I need that, Guess which tool is most flexible and capable of doing that? Excel. So I say keep your model, and it doesn't matter how it was built, but do your reporting in Excel. And Excel is the most flexible at doing all of that. And now it's powered by this central model that gives you so many advantages. For one, everything is kind of housed in one space. Once you define a measure, you can use them anywhere. You can slice and dice them any which way you want. And there's one more thing. Gosh, what was I going to say? There was one distinct advantage that this combination has, Excel and Power BI. Yeah, kind of a single source of truth. I think I had another nugget of wisdom, but usually when we have Excel reports, what do we end up with? We end up with an army of Excel reports, a plethora of Excel reports everywhere, and each one is filled with formulas and endless formulas. And imagine if you made a mistake in one of those reports, in one of the formulas. For one, it's going to be pretty hard to detect because it's just this in that one report, and maybe somebody's going to detect it, maybe somebody's going to not detect it, right? And in this new world, things have changed. Your measures are all defined in a single place, and they're being used in a lot of different places. Pretty much all, well, not pretty much, every single report, it could be Excel, could be Power BI, is built on that model. It's connecting directly to that model. It's exercising those measures. So now the surface area of that measure is immense. It's across all those reports. So that means if you did make a mistake in a measure in a calculation, and they're all measures are defined ones used everywhere, that the probability that somebody's going to detect it is higher, probably much higher than that Excel work, because that same erroneous, that had as a bug in it, buggy measure is being exposed in all these different reports wherever it's being used. Maybe not all of them, but maybe it's being used in 10 different reports. So let's say you detect it, and that's where the magic happens. Now you don't have to hunt around like, oh my gosh, where else did I use this thing? You can just go to directly to your model, fix it in one place, and boom, it's fixed in everywhere else. So it's really powerful. So you can go to Excel. Oh, now I remember. So Excel, besides doing pivot tables, so Power BI has pivots and charts. I mean, it doesn't have pivots, but it has tables, matrix, charts. Great, and it's great for what it does. It's filtering, mobile ready, all that sort of. It's amazing, right? No, nothing against it. But Excel gives you ultimate flexibility, and not only can you do pivot tables, which are great to begin with, you can also do cube formulas, and they give you ultimate flexibility. And I wouldn't go too much into that, but so pivot table is essentially laid out in a grid, right? So it's kind of a something like this, and everything is in a grid. But in a cube formula, you can say that, oh, I want to put the sales for Australia in this cell over here, and then right below that I'm going to put the sales for bicycles. So it doesn't have to make sense, and you can put those elements right next to each other. So Excel gives you a lot of flexibility. So that's one option. Sometimes that is not an option. I know Mickey in a class he just joined, he's trying to do it in Power BI. So Power BI, sometimes things get tricky, and sometimes you have to kind of jump through a few hoops to make things look exactly the way you want. One of the techniques that I use is a disconnected slicer, where I use that disconnected slicer to lay out that report. I'm not going to be able to talk too much into it because you need to show an example, but I do plan to record at least some videos about that, about just the reporting end, and all about how financial statements or financial reports sometimes require a very specific structure, and how you can do that in Power BI. So I had been on this streak where I want to focus on finance, and I thought November was going to be that month, but November got busy. I was traveling. I was at an entrepreneurs conference in San Diego, but which was pretty exciting. Some of you heard me speak on that in the Facebook page, but I plan to continue on that theme. I think I'm going to stick with kind of finance for a few months until maybe some of my students start complaining that, hey, Avi, what about marketing or Salesforce, or look at something else, and then I'll move on to the next thing. I do think that a lot of principles that I'm going to use on finance, they're often not universally, but generally applicable as well. If you learn tips and tricks to do a custom report in finance, you can do the same thing for any subject area you're working on. So Nick is asking, do you have a financial reporting sample data for Power BI? Do I? I did do some. I've struggled with that. So guys, we talked about sample data sets yesterday, but that's one of the biggest struggles in my world. And that's why I love real data, and I love when my students. So in my class, it's a smaller setting. Often we only have like 5 or 10 people on the Q&A call. And it's live. They can share their screen. So often people do just kind of share their data and so forth. So it's share their own model, and that makes it easier. So let's go. I'm thinking. So there's some finance data, but it's not something I'm proud of. It does come out of AdventureWorks, but if you go to the last financial dashboard video that I have, and if you get the download for that one, then it has a financial data set. It's not great. Does it? Yeah. So I will be working on that, and either I'll continue with the AdventureWorks, or I've also been working with Hector Garcia. Some of you, I've been running webinars with him. He's a CPA. He's focused on QuickBooks, accounting, all that sort of stuff. Pretty amazing. He's a big YouTuber as well. Hector Garcia, just search for him. He's going to pop up on YouTube. But I've been working with him on QuickBooks, and QuickBooks can generate a sample data set. So we're using that. So QuickBooks, if you sign up for a trial or something, it can just do like a sample company. What is there? So we have our AdventureWorks Contoso. I think theirs is a Rock Castle. So actually, let me show you the downloads really quick. So if you do on any video, you're going to have the link to grab the downloads. Maybe not on this video, but yeah, download lesson files. And this is what you're going to get. So here, there is the finance stuff, and you can grab those files that might have a decent data set. But then I did this QuickBooks exercise, and that has the QuickBooks data set. And initially, when I was stepping into QuickBooks, I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. I don't know anything about QuickBooks. But then I looked at the data set, and it looked so familiar because a lot of the same concepts are there. So I've worked with Dynamics data, and that had similar stuff as in QuickBooks, sales line item. And I'm like, dude, I know that. And a lot of the kind of accounting and the ledger stuff, I have created financial reports. So it wasn't that alien. I was glad to kind of see that. So of course, if you are working with QuickBooks, so check that out. Let me go back and see if there are any other idea for the sample data set. Yeah, finance. If any of you have any ideas, I would be really interested in getting a Xero sample data set, and I haven't even tried it yet. But maybe Xero can do a sample data set like QuickBooks can do. Of course, I would love to work with somebody's real data set. I don't know, nonprofit or something. I mean, if you have a data set, especially a finance data set, something like QuickBooks, Xero, hit me up. So good questions. So Nick's second question is, do you have common recycled DAX patterns used in financial reporting? So we certainly have a set of videos on YouTube, and we have more videos inside our course. So that's typically how that's how I've been doing things so far. That I record a whole bunch of stuff for the class. That comes first, and they get instant access to it. And usually I record it in a batch. So I'll spend a weekend and record all the financial videos. And they get all of it right away, and they get the downloads and everything. And I drip them out on YouTube, and I often don't release everything. Like the calendar table, it has 8 sections here, but online on YouTube, you would only find a few of them. So finance reports, as far as patterns go, it's kind of my take on it. So I'm not a finance guy myself. I'm not a CPA or anything. I've worked with them long enough. So I've seen the kind of things that they do, kind of current month view, quarter date. So I've built reports based on that. So based on essentially what I ended up building for finance teams, Microsoft Finance and so forth. So I have some of those examples, some pretty cool ones. So yeah, some of it is on YouTube. Rest of it is in here. And the next thing I want to tackle is a financial statement, essentially. And that is, who was asking? I think Daniela was asking about that. And that one is so specific because it requires a very specific report structure. And there are some techniques you use to create that. I know Mickey is also working on that. So creating these very curated, very structured reports that I want this structure. And there are a few ways to do it. And it's truly exciting. I've talked about trade-offs and how I kind of get excited about that. So in my experience and in the research that I did, it's kind of interesting that there are two main almost schools of thought or approaches. One is you can solve it in the query editor, where you do what I generally advise you not to do, which is don't build reports inside the query editor. I say build a model. But in this scenario, that is an exception to the rule, which is you kind of build something in the query editor. The structure of the report, not the numbers. The numbers are always dynamic, so that's pretty cool. And the other approach relies more on the model than more on measures. So yeah, I mean, I have done it for my clients, but I mean, I can't just take that data set and show it. So I have to find a good data set, redo them, re-record and everything. So yeah, it's gonna take some time. Whew. Okay, guys. Let's do a last call. I want to thank you again for everybody who is on, who joined, who asked questions, didn't ask questions, doesn't matter. And hey, remember this stuff, guys. And you know, it's so odd, and it's been oddly rewarding. I have so this whole journey about running my own business, doing this by myself, it's been hard, but it's been so rewarding. And the takeaways that I've gotten is that it's so much about mindset. And I think it's not just for if you're running your own business. I think it still applies no matter where you are. I mean, you're running a business, you're working for a small company, big company. A lot of it is about mindset. And I want us to, I'm so sick and tired. Maybe I shouldn't use those words, but yeah, I'm kind of done with that life of scarcity, and the life of where there's never enough time, there's never enough money. You know, I'll admit the money part I'm still struggling with, but the time I'm certainly in a better place than I was before. So let's get over that. And so here's the thing. I mean, we always say, when I have more time, then I'm gonna be more present with my family. And what if we turned it on its head? And you know, what if we said that no, I have all the time I need to do the thing that I need, right? So you're exactly where you need to be. So stop kind of being hard on yourself. Stop saying, oh man, it's day 2 of the challenge. I haven't even done anything. You know, I can't do it. Stop that. Just be nice to yourself. And from that place of confidence that I'm right where I need to be, and I have what it takes, and I am all I need. That's it, right? And you start from that place, and then just take the next step. That's all that matters. And don't try to move 20 balls 1 yard. Instead, just move one ball 20 yards and focus on that ball. And for a while, that can be this Power BI challenge. Maybe that's something else and something else. So hopefully some of that helped. And let me see if there are any last minute questions. I don't see any new ones. So thanks again. Power on, my friends.